First of all, this is a kind of a place to share stuff. I would say at the onset, I am not mainly for my own mental stability. I'm not interested in hearing anything. This is more the people who might be listening than, but I'm not interested in anything that justifies what happened at the Capitol.
There's no justification for it. I have things I want to share. I have a couple of things I want to show people. I can't be on very long because of things and such, but I have a couple things I want to share with everybody. Can I screen share? I don't know if any do.
Of course,
Okay.
let me say one thing. First of all, thank you all for being here. And Jessica, you're on.
Thanks. So I just wanted to share some images and things that I've found online because I've been watching all this go down all day. And I love how, I'll just say this, I love how the GOP is now taking this seriously and acting like, oh, what? Oh, no. Well, it's different when you have a gun shoved in your face and a bomb at your door that maybe we should have reeled him back some. But I want to show this is the demographic that is supporting the Cheeto in chief. Okay, so I want to just show. Let's see, share screen. So let's see if I'm my entire screen. Sure. Okay. So this is a guy that was in part of the raid, and I want you to read his shirt.
Oh, Camp Auschwitz. Of course.
There's good people on both sides.
Yes.
Don't you know? But yes. Camp Auschwitz looks like a winner to me. And I think it's hilarious to me, too, that the fact that these guys, I guess they don't realize they were on camera, that the FBI and et cetera are going to be looking over the footage and seeing all of this, all of their faces. The dude that there was another guy, I posted a picture of him on my Twitter feed, too. That the guy that broke into Nancy Pelosi's office. Oh, by the way, here's a couple of screamers that were there. And look at this idiot. But this is the guy with no shirt.
Oh,
that's classy. Isn't that sexy? And he's holding aloft a piece of mail that he stole off of her desk that is government it's a government note, like it's a letter to her.
Yep.
And he took that off her desk. And this is him.
Federal. Oh.
Yeah, federal offense. It's a felony.
Federal offense.
Yeah. And people know his name. They actually know this guy's name. But this is the thing. I'll have to look it back up. But they actually here it is. Robert Burnett. There you go.
I was going to guess he was a Bob.
But this is the thing that really, really just messes me up. This is the video footage, and I don't know if anyone's seen this. If either of you guys have seen it, of basically the police just letting them in.
They just let them
in.
Yep.
Hey, white guys, come on in. Come on in. This is great. Come on in, white guys. Yeah.
Right, because these are friends and family. It's the friends and family situation. Oh yeah, hey Bob, how you doing? How's the wife?
You know what that reminds me of? I will tell you. It reminds me of when I was covering the state Democratic convention 2 years ago in 2019, and Tom Steyer. I had a press credential. This is the same one where the senator from New Jersey. Elected to ignore me as I'm trying to pass by. At the same time, later he tells everybody that, Biden has issues and basically saying that Biden is racist. And I'm saying, well, gee, you're black also, Corey, and look how you treated me, right? So I'm standing there. Steyer's about 14 feet away. And I'm saying to the security guy who's black, I said, hey, I'd like to talk to him. I'm press. And he goes, I can't let you in. And I said, well, I don't understand why. Because now mind you, he looked at me first. He didn't even look at my tag. He looked at me and just said, you can't come in. And this guy's black, okay, like me. As I'm explaining to him that it's okay, white guy goes shooting right by. He doesn't stop him. Okay, lets him go, just like you saw. Right to Tom Steyer, and I know that guy was a press guy. And I stopped. I said, hey, wait, dude, where are you going? I said, hey, why aren't you stopping him? Well, I didn't see him. Well, yeah, because you were busy looking at me because you had this idea that somebody black is doing something bad and you're black. Dude, get him. I said, this is what I said. I said, go get him. Go get him now. And he, hold on a second. And he said, and I said, go get him now. And he froze, and it was like something washed over me, went and got him. And he says, oh, man, I shouldn't let you in here. You got to come back. Okay, that is also the same situation that caused Kamala Harris to be confronted by Aidan Quinn at the same convention in Moscone Center. They let this guy in because he's white. And I'm saying, look, I've heard enough of explaining this away. I've seen it at 58 years old too many times. And it's like, hey, wait a minute. They let them get away with, quite literally, as we saw today, murder.
Oh yeah. No, I have one more image I want to share with you, and it has to be, and it actually goes along with what you're talking about. Pardon my dogs.
No, your dogs are right. It's an outrage.
But this actually has to do with white nationalism. This is apparently a thing that
which your dogs hate, apparently.
Oh yeah, they're good dogs. But I want you to look at this guy. This is one of the guys that broke in.
Most the other things, but this is the winner. I had Where had this been?
What's even crazier is about there's a photo of this guy out of his getup, and he's with Rudy Giuliani.
What?
Posing with him. Yeah, he's posing with him.
Oh,
and so the thing is, what this is some sort of Viking. It's like a nationalist Germanic thing, I guess. I'm going to look further into it because I'm just fascinated by it. But apparently, this whole thing where they're wearing the Thor hammer and all of that has to do with this, white Aryan thing.
Yeah.
So and that guy broke in that outfit with his bullhorn and bullhead.
Have you ever heard of the Church of Christ Identity?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever heard of the Church of Christ Identity?
Yes, I think I have. But go ahead and go ahead.
Okay, so I don't know about this particular gentleman. I'm not familiar with his work, but I will make myself familiar now that I've seen him.
I'm sure
there is an entire group that have 501c3 status, no less, unless it's been revoked. I'll have to check. That have this whole religious dogma based on disproving that Jesus was Jewish. No way he could have been Jewish because he had to have been white. So of course they are able to prove that Christ was an Aryan, you see. And amongst the most famous members of the Church of Christ Identity is the late Timothy McVeigh. But there are many others. And there are many others. I've been studying this stuff for quite some time, and I got interested while I was a young officer candidate, while I was an ROTC cadet, and I would see things. I told you about some of the things I would see while I was on America's military bases, right? These are, people who've sworn to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And they would be getting, cassettes from like Swerve Driver. No, wait, hold on. That's not the name of the band. Sorry. Swerve Driver is a perfectly all right band. It was what's the name of it? Something Driver. Maybe it was Screwdriver, something Driver. But there was a whole
But it wasn't Mini Driver, right?
Yeah, there was a whole subset of punk that was just 100% Nazi, basically. And I think they called that subset Rye or something, that RAII or something like that. Don't quote me on the spelling. But there was a whole movement. They were trying to get younger, right? They realized they were skewing old. So this is what punk helped them to do. and and not most punks, like a tiny percentage. Like most punks were, just punks, decent people who just liked, aggressive punk music. But you had this subset of, neo-Nazis basically, and they grew up. And then some of them grew up and grew into being different people, but not all of them, right? Some of them grew up and, went to the Northwest, right? And formed communities. And these communities where they would, some of them turned and, went the religious route with it, where their white nationalism was religiously based. Some of them decided to just keep it, just kick it purely militaristic, right? And just did the whole militia thing. But eventually you had these guys who sort of brought almost like a hipster bent to it. And that's the Proud Boys, right? I mean, I don't know how best to explain them. They didn't exist when I first started researching this stuff. They're a relatively recent iteration of this stuff. And
they're the millennial Aryans.
Right. Back and forward hipster Nazis, right? So and they're into like a lot of social media stuff, as you've seen. The old school guys didn't. I mean, they kind of understood the internet. Like I knew some of the, not knew, but I knew of, tracked, studied some of the Stormfront guys, right? That was the first real major internet presence for the American neo-Nazi movement was Stormfront.
Hey, for those who don't know, Stormfront was a website dedicated to white supremacist views.
Yes, correct. And it was I guess the term OG doesn't really fit, but it was the big daddy. It was the one that, and then when Stormfront went away, the people that were doing Stormfront didn't go away, right? It was like, you get rid of the website, you can't get rid of the ideas that are in people's minds or the hate that's in their hearts. So
or the desire to communicate them with each other.
Right. So they went in other directions. And Twitter and Facebook and lots of other things have
and text messages and messaging accounts, which is really the unsung culprit in all this,
Yeah, I mean, all the things that you can think of. But there's lots of gun clubs on Facebook that aren't just gun clubs. I mean, I don't know how else to put that to you. So these groups, and they're not all affiliated with each other, but they're similar enough that they can agree on certain things, right? They can all agree that, well, they're against the mud people. They all got that part, and they all agree on, exactly how they feel about the police or the federal government or other things. They can all agree that they're anti-mud people. They all got that in common. And some of them are very much anti-government, and what they call ZOG, right? The Zionist occupationist government, as they call it. Some of them are only semi-anti-government until they decide to become fully anti-government. And now you get the whole QAnon thing, which is the attempt to try to seem like you're smarter than you are. And Alex Jones and a bunch of others. And once again, when these people, it used to be that the Alex Jones people were separate from the Seb Gorka and Steve Bannon people. And what the Trump thing did was it took the people who were suit and tie racist and the people who were, tactical gear racist and the people who were mud flaps, truck nuts racist and brought them all together. That's really, if you want to talk about, that's what happened. If you want coalition building at its finest, that's what happened. These people didn't used to talk to each other, right? Steve Bannon would never have, countenanced, well, not for any moral reasons. He just looked down on them before. He just didn't think they were on his level. It wasn't that he didn't agree with them. He just didn't like the way they did what they did, right? Because they weren't having their meetings, there wasn't enough 20-year-old scotch at their meetings, I guess, to satisfy him. But now they've managed to together. And is it a permanent thing? I think not, because these are not the kind of people that I think are good at coalition building. I think at some point their arrogance and self-serving venality will eventually turn them on each other. But right now they have a common enemy, and that's common sense. First of all, it's one of their common enemies, but also they truly are terrified. Like, I want to get back to saying that a lot of the root of this is truly fear. They are afraid of the future because the future is not America being a quote unquote black Christian country. That's not the future of America. They know that. And
Do you
it's,
actually think that they think that far ahead?
oh yeah, they can do math. And they watch TV shows. They see the commercials, right? So they understand. Some of them actually do know the math, like they really do the math. Look at the remember the birth bomb book or whatever? What was that doctor's name? Who was talking about how white people aren't having enough babies. But yes, they've got doctors now, you know, not a bunch, but who are part of the little movement now.
I guess if I break down is
they truly are afraid of the future. But go ahead.
What I'm having a problem with is that I'll be honest, I kind of don't care. And I don't mean that to be flip. And I don't mean that to be derisive of you. Please don't take it that way. Sure. But the concerns that I have had about the chain of events that have led to this, what happened today, were for me first planted way back in 1988 when, I guess maybe this is because I'm just too chocked with stuff in my head after 58 years on Earth, but Harvard economist Shoshana, I forgot Shoshana's last name, had first explained how we were officially underpaid as a society, and we had created a group of people, a class, not by race, but by economic class, who were working jobs that, adjusted for inflation, paid them less than people just the years before. And I thought, well, okay, eventually, maybe we'll see this as an economic problem. And then I wrote my thesis. That was 88. That was 1 year after I had filed my thesis at Berkeley, called when I was there for the Master City Planning degree, and I focused on urban economics. And it was called A Theory of Decline, the American Institution and the World Economy. And what I got out of my thesis, which was 127 pages, and I should just rewrite it as a book because Cal lost it. That's a nightmare. They always say at Berkeley, you know, watch your paperwork, or now I probably handle it differently. And a momentary aside, but it's related to this. I was waiting for my sheepskin, you know, and turned out, Bill, they hadn't even shared my grades with Sproul, which is where your grades are supposed to go to get processed, so you get the right transcript that shows, hey, you did all this stuff, right?
Yeah,
they had
the process.
They had all of that up until spring of '87, and then someone said to me, because I went to look at my transcript, and said, well, where were you in spring of '87? I said, well, I was here. We don't have you here. I said, what do you mean you don't have me there? And Bill, to make a long story short, I had to go around all the individual buildings and classes, not the classes themselves, but the departments, and physically record my grades on a placard, and then take that placard back to Sproul and have it filed. And then they came up with an elaborate reason why my thesis wasn't filed. Well, so the guy said, well, here's this check, and here's the check. And what I think happened is that they dropped it on the ground, and it sat there, and somebody else picked it up. And, you know, I'm just looking at it, I'm thinking, seriously? So anyway, my beautiful thesis, which, and on top of that, my book, and with my material I used to write the thesis, got stolen while in the bag out of my car. All right. So
I've got some grad school stories that we could share sometime later too. It's a racket, my friend. It's a racket.
What I wrote about and what I researched is in me to this day. And what I learned is that all of our neighboring and some would say competitive industrial economies and societies, save for two, are monoethnic. That is, You think of Japan, you think of Mexico, and you think of Russia, you think of, and so on and so on and so on. Then there's the UK and the United States. And both of those countries, our countries, were the ones that did not have a coherent industrial policy or healthcare policy or social policies. And this is at the time when Japan was eating our lunch among others, in terms of industrial policy. Oh, and by the way, here come the newly industrializing countries of Korea at the time, and to a lesser extent, Indonesia. And what I determined was that if we didn't get a policy under us that ensured that we had a guaranteed minimum standard of income, so that our wage levels were not so low that we started competing against each other, including person who looks like this, that a person who looks like that getting more than we do, and vice versa, that if we didn't do that, that we were not going to achieve the competitive pace we need to be at the next generations, let alone the current one. I wrote that in 1987.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I also...
What makes me tearfully upset is that everything that I forecast could happen has happened. Barry Bluestone and Bennett Harrison, in their book, The Deindustrialization of America, talked about how reducing wage levels cause increases in domestic violence.
Yep.
And the simple equation, these things are not without a solution. And the solution is, and I keep saying, is we have to simply get money to the people who don't have it. And we fooled around, and we've done everything, Bill, we've done everything but that, okay? We say, even the progressives, oh, well, defund the police. Well, that's not really the problem. And then we say, oh, well, and then the people on the other side of the aisle say, well, okay, well, it's lower taxes. Well, that's not the problem.
No, our tax rates are about as low as you could go for a major industrialized nation.
and Andrew Yang had the idea, but he had two problems with it. He basically used it to say, oh, black folks, you're all screwed and everybody else is okay. Well, that's not exactly a great way to sell a policy, okay? And you know, and if you talk to me, you could have sold it better. I'm being arrogant, but I worked a lot hard on it. I think a lot harder than he did. So my point is, here we are today in that place. Money unites people. If you have enough and I have enough, we're happy. You know? But if you're driving the rolls and I'm playing the lottery to get the rolls, I'm not exactly as happy, assuming, of course, I want the rolls. And now people just sort of condition themselves not to care. But those guys that rioted, they were paid by Trump. The Trump people figured out, and when I say paid, I don't mean, as my mother so rightly pointed out, I don't mean they didn't have their own, love for Trump and all that. But hey, look, the Trump people said, hey, we know you like it. I have emails from Trump's people thinking that I'm a supporter, saying, hey, well, we'll pay your airfare, we'll pay this. All right, they will pay you to take these trips.
Yes. Excursions.
Yeah.
Activities.
They put money in your pocket and then some. If you go back to people, and I can start listing them, like the lady that harassed Mitt Romney in the airport that's on Twitter, okay? Candace Hawkins, I believe, isn't that her last name is? But
Owens?
Oh, no, that's black. She's this.
You're talking about, okay.
Yeah. She was a supporter, white, of Black Lives Matter until something happened in 2016 and she switched. Now let's see. It's not too hard to figure out that she and a number of these people who rose up in social media that you never heard of previously were getting paid by Trump. These folks have had a multi.
And others, yes, okay.
These folks have had a multi-billion-dollar war chest, and they've been passing that money around like nobody's business.
Yeah, I mean, Trump isn't so much bankrolling much of this because he's kind of broke, but the Koch brothers have more money than God.
No. Trump is not broke.
Okay, I shouldn't say broke, but he's not as rich as he'd like you to believe.
No. That's not the point. It's not about him. The organizations, like the Trump organization, is actually 100 different organizations.
Sure. Yeah.
And
nowadays,
then there are special organizations that are established that then you can, like crowds on demand.
Yeah.
You can go and buy up to 3,600 people for a crowd, and they will be there within 24 to 40 hours notice.
Yep. And we looked at one of the websites that does that. We did it, I think, together. We were looking at them.
Yeah.
And a lot of this was a Pandora's box that was opened by the Citizens United. When that was handed down, when they handed down that decision from the bench, it made it so that the firewalls that used to be in place have been burned away. So now the money, with what he's called dark money, you don't even have to hide it anymore, really, is now just allowed to flow like the water.
Right. No, I mean, you're saying Trump is broke and da-da-da.
Well,
Trump,
he's not as rich as you'd have him believe, but that doesn't matter because the money doesn't have to come from him anyway. The money just has to flow through these organizations.
Well, he's the conduit.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's coming from others, but whatever.
Yeah, he's the conduit, and he's president. As president, you got to go right through you.
Right.
But I want to show you what I contain is some of the real money coming from that's causing this. Okay, and it is let's see here, in KH, I think it is called. It is a news organization. Let me try this. Chinese News Channel Live. There are a number of these Chinese. If I can put these on here, there's one I'm looking for, but it didn't. The name is escaping me, so let me put it up here. Right there, and this one. There. But there's one that is particularly pernicious. That it's like VOA News is one, but they have this annoying tendency to be very supportive of. This was 10 years ago, and they had 1.5 million subscribers. Okay. And that's the San Francisco Bay Area. And they do news. Trump supporters crowd around a Capitol, pro-Trump supporters. And this is Chinese, but there's one that's actually Chinese but based in New York that is really all in for Trump and spreading his message. And there are a number of organizations like this. And these are the ones, and they have money coming that have this is Chinese money. They have their own interests, and they, just like the other one, that's a big problem. Pay attention to, and this one has really grown, okay? And that's Russia Today. All right. They say it in the most watched news network on YouTube with 10 million. I remember when they used to be really small.
Yes, right? Very small.
Yeah, and not anymore, And so and Russia Today has become, they went from these viral videos about fireworks and Russia stuff to all of this news. And these are the ones that ask these questions. They do the slighted news. My point is, rather than take a position on something that's bad, they'll show you there's something that's bad, but they won't tell you it's bad. Like, for example, KK, why is it still alive? That sort of thing. All right. And, or police take down on Pichuku or something like that. So I always say this: you can tell as much about an organization's political view by what they cover, even when they don't tell you what the view exactly is. And that, I think, Russia Today really represents that remark. And they've gotten they and who runs them? That's the Russian Federation. They say so.
Yep.
And so they are bigger in terms of subscribers than our news channels, and they brag about it. So this is what's happening today. And if they choose to cover a topic because of the way Google's algorithms are designed, guess who gets seen first? Theirs. And it's really wrong. You could be ahead of them in terms of a topic, like it used to be on YouTube. If you came out first with a topic, your video was at number one. So you got the views. They don't do that anymore. They don't do that for me. They used to. So the way YouTube is done is like, hey, I even got so upset about it. I tried to get Susan Wojcicki's mother to make her stop doing it. Susan Wojcicki is the CEO of YouTube. Her mother is my Facebook friend. She actually said she'd look into it, which I really appreciate. No, I don't pay. You know what? I look for any corner. If I'm treated unfairly, I don't care. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm a YouTube pioneer. They need to treat me as such. And hey, look, they have. I'm still a partner, right? But all that aside, a lot of my point, Bill, is that a lot of foreign interests, I believe, are pulling the president's chain.
Sure.
And the president needs to go to jail.
I mean, all those loans he took from oligarchs, all the other stuff that's been going on, even before he was president, like well before that, there's been, funny stuff or whatever. And I'm past all that. I mean, I'm not past all that. I mean, all that is things that need to be discussed and whatever. Right now, I'm focused right now at this very moment on the fact that these people, right, the law and order people and all the back the blue people and all this other stuff are strangely silent for the most part as these violent and destructive individuals are attempting to subvert the will of the majority of American citizens. And
in fact, let's see where we're at right now, having said that.
And I can't claim to be shocked or surprised. I mean, certainly disappointed, but not shocked, not surprised. I've been seeing a lot of this coming for quite some time. And
I'm disappointed.
Interestingly, remember when the Tea Party used to really care about things like small government and taxes? When's the last time you heard them talk about the size of the government or taxation? So you have these, prophylactics or these cloaks that only stay on until they don't need them anymore. And they shed these things. They shed them like a snake shedding its skin. And so now the heart of this movement has been revealed to be, a support of white nationalism. And
they're whack jobs, Bill.
But it's easy to say that because I'm not disputing that, but that's not the problem. We've always had whack jobs.
I'm saying that we never acknowledge them. These guys are whack jobs that call themselves conservative. They don't know anything about conservative. I'm conservative because I believe in the maintenance of institutions. That is the truest conservatism of all. And all these people that run around saying they're conservative, they're not. Why? Because their real conservative ideas are really just racist stuff.
Yes.
But go on, and what they do, is they destabilize an institution. These folks, they're not interested in intellectual ideas. They're interested in something that somebody told them that they either like because somebody else in their social circle likes them, or their wife thinks that they're cool because they like them, or whatever it is, and that's it.
Well, I think it's even, believe it or not, more basic than that. As I mentioned before, they have this anxiety, this enormous roiling anxiety about the fact that this country is not going to be a white country. It is going to be a country that is no longer majority white. And this cuts them to the core. This is something that frightens them and makes them feel unsure of themselves and a bunch of other stuff. And so they buy a bunch of, they buy a bunch of.
How come I always find they're poor? They never have any money.
Well, they somehow find money for ammunition. They somehow find money for sometimes weapons that are, people keep throwing around the term assault rifle, and frankly, it's a semi-automatic rifle with a high capacity magazine slapped on it. You could turn a hunting rifle if you know how to.
My point is, why is it all that stuff is? My point is, why is it that they don't have any money? Weapons are not that expensive, okay? And
it depends on what you're buying. I mean,
well,
you can drop a decent amount of money if you're.
Yeah, but I don't want to get in the techniques of it because I don't want to have the conversation here, okay?
Okay.
My point is, I don't care about that. My point is, they don't have a lot of money. And if they had a lot of money, they'd own a bunch of property and they'd own a bunch of corporations and they would be, wealthier and truly middle class rather than whining about what they think somebody else has. And it goes back to
the point that's the point I'm driving at. It's that anxiety, right? It's because they aren't successful in a country where everything is stacked in the deck to try to make them successful, and still they haven't succeeded. So they have to find, a scapegoat, a boogeyman, pick a term where they can attach the reason for their struggles, their failure, their lack of whatever. And so their father figure, right? They find a daddy figure, a father figure, right, to attach to. And whether that's somebody like Sebastian Gorka or Steve Bannon or Donald John Trump or whoever it is, and they look for this great white father, right, to lead them until one of two things happens. Either they do get led to what they think is somehow this Shangri-La, or they become disenchanted, right? The dream, to go back to, the whole dream deferred, it sugars, what is it? It dries like a raisin in the sun, right? And when it finally, is it sink like a heavy load or does it finally explode? Their lack of the things that they've been promised, or where's my pony? Where's my, whatever it is they thought they were going to get when the great white father led them to wherever he was leading them. When they don't get that thing, they don't get the double wide trailer or whatever it is they thought they were going to get. Now you have a problem. And so now they become disenchanted, but they still want to find some place to vent, some place to attack, something to place all this rage that's rolling inside them, instead of looking inward and saying, in this country that I keep talking about is because they always talk about this is the greatest country in the world. Like, you can't shut them up about how great America is until they're ready to go around, breaking through barricades and threatening people. But they have this inability to go through the introspection that would let them know perhaps how they got here in the first place. And once again, we talked about the book, What the Hell's Wrong with Kansas, and all these other things where you sort of talk about how people have been led down this primrose path away from their own self-interest, right? I mean, 11 of the 25 poorest counties in America are in Kentucky, right? So we find this, Mississippi is not far behind in terms of numbers of poor counties. You look at these strongholds of, once again, as you put out, sort of false conservatism. These strongholds are almost always places where the education system is broken, where the economic ecosystem is very narrow and struggling, and where there is a either perceived or real lack of connection between these people and the ways that they can resolve their problems. They somehow think that voting.
What do we do about it?
Oh, well, I'm going to go back to something I talked about a long time ago. When South Africa finally threw off the chains of apartheid, they spent multiple years going through their reconciliation process. And they had these sometimes very, very painful, but not punitive, tribunals by which the people who had carried out sometimes terrible atrocities, unlike the Nuremberg trials where they knew at the end of it there could be, hanging at the end of a noose, there was no, for a few there was punitive action, but for most, they simply wanted people to express and explain what they had done to people who may have lost loved ones or just had been victims of this system. And they were willing to essentially bear all of this dirty laundry, where America has this tendency to pretend it never happened, or it happened, but it happened a very long time ago, and let's not discuss it. We have never had a moment in America's history where, if you believe that trauma is a real thing and it actually changes the way your brain works, if you believe that trauma is not only a real thing that changes the way your brain works, but that it can be passed from generation to generation, and if you believe that trauma affects not only the person who is traumatized, but the person who is the traumatizer, if you believe that both of them are changed and, for lack of a better way of putting it, bent or distorted in terms of their personality and their brain, at least to some extent, by the act of both being the agent of trauma and the recipient of trauma, and at no point has our nation made a concerted effort to fix any of that. We never had the reconciliation process, right? We never had a thing where we called forth, Robert E. Lee and Jubal Early and all these other people to testify and talk about what they did. And, there was never this actual moment of national healing. It never happened, Zenny. It never happened.
Talk to me like I'm 5. How do we fix the problem?
This is what I'm coming to. So if someone goes through a terrible traumatic experience, how do you help them knit back together their psyche? Well, some people say therapy, right? Some people say, but either way, you have to examine the thing that happened. You can't say it'll go away or get better on its own. That's not how trauma works. It's not how any problem works. Ignoring it doesn't fix it. That's true of any problem. So one, we have to have a thorough, aggressive, probably multi-generational, to be perfectly honest, process by which we actively get people who have been both the traumatizers and the traumatized to be able to communicate in a non-punitive setting. We have to provide therapy for both, frankly. We have to, because you don't just want to fix the people who are traumatized, because you also want to fix the traumatizers. Otherwise, they will pass along things that you don't want them passing along to their children and nephews and grandchildren.
Give it to me in a concrete way, because I don't understand what you're driving at.
So what I'm driving at is a national reconciliation process that will probably take 50 years, but here's I'm trying to get to that. So Germany did a great job of this, actually, right? They spent 20 probably plus years, I don't know, well through the 60s of, first of all, for those that they didn't end up, having prosecuted, but they had an entire society that either had participated in Nazism, had abetted Nazism, or had been victims of Nazism, right? You could only be in one of those 3 categories if you lived in Germany. Mm-hmm. Did they say, let's forget about it? It happened. Let's talk about something else? No, they had an aggressive policy in schools, in churches, in the workplace, in every part of their society. They aggressively discussed, how did this happen? How do we make sure it never happens again? And, beyond those that were prosecuted, all of the people who were being reintegrated, who had been Nazis, were given a process by which they talked about what they did, many times even facing victims, if there were, victims available to hear what they had to say. And they heard then what the victims had to say. And like I said, they did something similar in South Africa. So that both sides got a chance to, one, let it out, first of all, right? So you first have, instead of people saying, I'm going to hold this down and just move on, no, we're going to bring all this stuff up. It's all going to come out.
Two, in addition to a deep exegesis and exploration of what exactly got us to this point, and talking to both the traumatizers and the traumatized, and having a national, essentially a national reconciliation project that brings in historians and actual therapists and people who build societies, right? I mean, once again, you studied urban planning. You're not just making it so you don't end up with traffic jams. You're also designing things so that people care more about themselves than each other, right? I mean, all great architects say that I'm not just trying to make it so the building doesn't fall down, right? I'm trying to make it so that people inhabit a space where they are going to be encouraged to be better than they were when they entered the space, right? That's one of the great rules of sort of the last several years in architecture. If we're building a society, or in this case, sort of rebuilding a society, in the image of the society we thought we were building the first time, except for all the racism, you have to first admit to all the racism, right? So that means going back to all the treaties that we signed with the Native people and examining all of them and bringing in those that were affected by all these broken treaties and saying, this is what we did to you, right? This is what was done to you. This was taken from you. As opposed to saying, it was a long time ago, forget about it, right? Hey, have a casino. All of it, all of this stuff, man. We talk about not just, what happened during slavery, but what happened in the bloody summer of 1919. We go through all of it. So, like I said, it's sociologists, psychologists, historians, everybody gets brought in to the table. And we talk about, if you were designing a program of natural reconciliation, right? And politicians have to be involved too. But I don't want them running the show. I want them to be part of the show. If you just hand it to politicians, you know what's going to happen. It's going to get watered down. It'll be like, dun, 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 America's great. Because that's their instinct as a politician. You can't let politicians be the ones that design the message. They can be part of the process. They can help fund the thing. But if they're running the show, it'll get, right? But if you find the subject matter experts and say, we're going to devote 50 years to this, if that's what it takes, we're going to make sure that there's more than enough funding, because no one's ever said we don't have enough money for nuclear submarines, right? We always find money for things we want to find money for. And we're going to fund people who are researching this. Why is racism so persistent, right? We're going to fund people who are going to find out if people love to say, well, racism is a mental illness. I mean, it's kind of a catchy thing to say, but is it really true? And if so,
yeah,
what triggers it? And if it is, what triggers it, right? So
I'll tell you what triggers it. Not having money. I mean, what you're saying is all well good, but my point is
part of it, Zenny. But there's rich racists in America. Don't pretend there aren't very rich racists.
Bill, we've never had a situation in the United States of America where we've actually given money to people so they are not poor. Okay.
Oh, I'm agreeing with you about that, but money's not by. But there's billionaires.
No, the reason why I'm pushing back on you like this is because I always get this thing about explaining away what I know from studying this and experiencing with people for so long.
I'm agreeing with you about that. I'm saying that the Koch brothers are arch racist and they're billionaires. We have
time out. The Koch brothers only worth 1.8 billion. Jeff Bezos is worth 100 billion. Okay,
I get that. But I'm saying giving the Koch brothers more money is going to make them less racist.
My point is that the Koch brothers may wind up giving our company money. All right, for different purposes. My point is the Koch brothers are not the gold standard anymore. That's like yesterday.
I'm not pointing to them as the gold standard. I'm pointing to them that money doesn't fix racism.
Money does fix racism. And the reason why I say it does.
Not by itself, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. You know why? You want to know why?
There's so many.
You want to know why money doesn't fix racism? Because we never tested it. This is a society that doesn't want to give anybody money to begin with.
Right, but I'm saying Donald Sterling, Jerry Richardson, there's a lot of rich people who are racist.
No, not in the same way. Okay, my point is that we have constructed a society where we used to brag about inter-class mobility. All right,
sure. Yes.
We killed that over the time that you and I have been alive.
Yes,
we used to say, oh, being poor is a temporary condition, all right? And those are the days where you had hobos. Those are the days you had people who, they didn't want to work for a while, so they sleep on some friend's couch and they go to another friend's couch and everything else.
A lot of those people were mentally ill and we just didn't know how to diagnose it then, Zay. I mean, like, let's not be so dismissive.
No. And then they would turn around and meet the right person and get the right job, and they were fine again because their friends provided an infrastructure for them to be better, okay? We killed all of that. This country has killed that. It has steadily killed that under this silly idea that we're a capitalist society when in point of fact capitalism never existed, and we've constructed this bed of lies that, hey, you know what? That problem about poverty or anything else, a crime, is somebody else's problem. And the one aspect of this problem that we have in common with the UK, which is the only other multi-ethnic country among the nationals, is these problems are always somebody else's problem. Okay.
Have you been to France recently, Zenny? I'm not sure that's what you're saying is exactly true.
And my point is that we have never practiced as an American society, okay, as an American society, getting it right, an idea that was established by the, ironically enough, the Nixon administration in 1972, the guaranteed minimum standard of income. And now that it's become, cool to talk about it again, even though I've been talking about it throughout.
Sure.
They want the billionaires to do it when the billionaires don't have enough money to do it now. Why? Because at the time that you and I have been alive, we, from 1962 to now, have added over 4 billion people on this planet. And we went from 180 million people to 330 million people in the United States, which means it takes more money to do it. Okay?
Right,
and,
way more, yes.
And over the time that we've done that, we allow multinational corporations to grow in the United States and take
their money off.
Right, okay? And we do nothing to stop it. So I'm telling you,
we've done. No. Let's sharpen that to a point. In fact, it's been encouraged. It's been encouraged. It's been not discouraged. It's been encouraged.
And I'll let you talk. I want you to listen to me. I'll let you talk without interruption.
Okay.
I want you to listen to me. Okay?
I did.
We have never, ever done this. And my point is that every time it's brought up, we have some ridiculous excuse not to do it. We need to give money to the poorest areas, the Appalachians, the areas that, and we need to redevelop them. And we need to stop talking and telling people, oh, by the way, climate change is such that I'm going to take your dirty job away. So some of the same people that happened to storm that place, or also in some cases, some people who worked in the coal industry and feel like they're out. And we let that happen under the idea that, again, guess what? It's a new version of the same old song. Oh, that's not my problem because I've got my tech job, I've got my education, and they don't. So therefore, I am better than them, and I let them suffer. And that's wrong. Okay? So my point
no one's disputing that, I don't think.
No, the best remedy to constant racism is a fully monetized United States of America like we have not had arguably since 1966. And even then, we were smaller. But my mother has reminded me, she said, the problems we have today in terms of race, we didn't have through the 60s, 70s, 80s. And we especially didn't have them the same way during the late 70s. We were truly rich. And people were getting help. And the stigma about getting help wasn't as, it wasn't as ossified. Why? Okay, maybe we didn't have the same social media, whatever. But my point is, we did not, at the time that we could have done it, at the time Nixon could have acted and established the guaranteed minimum standard of income, he didn't do it because his aides told him that it was something that wasn't truly conservative. All right. And that was at the time that everybody knew if you wanted to get elected, maybe you could do a Southern strategy. You could go racist like George Wallace, but William F. Buckley in 1965 very rightly saw the error of his ways and figured the people that he was associating with, which are not dissimilar from the modern day counterparts that were in the Capitol today, were whack-ups. and he didn't want to be associated with wackos. So in 1965, he did a famous pivot and redefine or help redefine conservative thought from an American political sense, and thereby rendered the Southerners who were wackos inert.
Well,
Donald Trump
I don't know about a nerd.
Donald Trump knew that, but for a weird strategy, he couldn't get elected. So what did he do?
Yeah,
he said everything running that he didn't even say the previous year, but the media didn't call him on it, say for people like me. And then I remember National Football League. Okay, same thing. Oh, by the way, Jessica says, all right, mental health is a real issue. Doesn't get it. That's right.
yes.
And people don't understand mental health is tied to money. Okay,
Everything's tied to money.
No, mental health is tied to money.
Everything's tied to money, but yes, I'm agreeing with you.
It's tied to money, number one.
Sure. I mean, we're not disagreeing. Like, that's not a disagreement. No one's disagreeing with you.
When you have the money, you can fix everything. Okay?
Right. Every kind of health is tied to money. Every kind of everything is tied to money. Like,
So-
we're agreeing with that.
And just as how had the bill. Okay, but I just see Lady G throw Trump under the bus. Like that's going to save him. Who's Lady G? Do you know who Lady G is? Say who is? Let me. I
There's a
don't.
couple people it could be.
Well, you know what?
Lindsey Graham. She's talking about Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham. Yeah. You don't know that's Lindsey Graham's nickname? That's
Good. Learn something new. You know what? You learn something new every day.
Lindsey Graham.
I did not know that. In fact, it just so happens that we have at the Hill, but we also have, if I happen to copy this and then go down here, all right, and replace the Hill publication. I like that. I like their theme, by the way, although it doesn't have any videos. But I like Oakland News Now better. But which I'll put up in the background here, and I'll let Oakland News Now open, but it'll be on the back burner for now, and always have to make sure that we take care of showing off the goods. But the whole point is now, let's get to Mr. Graham, because the person that you call Lady G made this statement.
Didn't violate the Supreme, the Constitution.
Let's start here.
Trump and I, we've had a hell of a journey. I hate being this way. Oh my God, I hate it. From my point of view, he's been a consequential president. But today, first thing you'll see, all I can say is count me out. Enough is enough. I've tried to be helpful. But when this Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled 4-3 that they didn't violate the Constitution of Wisconsin, I agree with the 3, but I accept the 4. If Al Gore can accept 5-4, he's not president. I can accept Wisconsin 4-3. Pennsylvania, it went to the Second Circuit. So much for all the judges being in Trump's pocket. They said, no, you're wrong. I accept the Pennsylvania Second Circuit that Trump's lawsuit wasn't right. Georgia, they said the Secretary of State took the law in his own hands. He changed the election laws unlawfully. A federal judge said, no, I accept the federal judge, even though I don't agree with it. Fraud. They said there's 66,000 people in Georgia under 18 voted. How many people believe that? I asked, give me 10. I hadn't had one.
Nope.
8,000 felons in prison in Arizona voted. Give me 10. I hadn't gotten one.
Nope.
Does that say there's problems in every election? I don't buy this. Enough's enough. We got to end it.
That's one. Here's another from CBS News. Says
the recently re-elected Lindsey Graham,
yeah,
senior senator from the state of South Carolina. I can't remember if that's Strom Thurmond's.
Joe Biden. I've traveled the world with Joe. I hoped he lost. I prayed he would lose. He won. He's the legitimate president of the United States. I cannot convince people, certain groups, by my words, but I will tell you by my actions that maybe I, above all others in this body, need to say this. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are lawfully elected and will become the president and the vice president of the United States on January the 20th.
Now imagine if that had happened 2.5 months ago. Imagine how different things would be, Zenny, if that had same
Joe Biden, now
impassioned
travel well with
speech.
Joe. I hoped he lost. I prayed he would lose. He won. He's the legitimate president of the United States. I cannot convince people, certain groups, by my words, but I will tell you by my actions that maybe I, above all others in this body, need to say this. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are lawfully elected and will become the president and the vice president of the United States on January the 20th.
Okay, so we got that. Yeah, Jessica said something ironically that got me a little bit distracted, but there's your in fact, not only that, Lindsey Graham, your Lady G, as you call it.
Yes, only 7 weeks late, but thanks.
Yeah, it says, well, here's the statement right here. Lindsey Graham, a staunch ally of President Trump, declares it's over. It's over. The romance is over after all this shit. During his Senate floor speech, stating Joe Biden, and you heard it, okay? And then, yeah, and so this is it, all right? So, Lindsey Graham getting off the Trump seeking ship. I have a child.
Yes, exactly.
And then, as it turns out, Jessica says she has something for you, Bill. Now, yeah. Now,
that's exciting.
Yeah, I think. Well, let's see what it is since I don't know what it is. Let's see. Jessica Dwyer, Fangirl Esquire.
There we go, Fangirl Esquire. Everyone follow her.
Yes. And she says, Lady G, it's too late. You're as filthy as all of them. Da, 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 da. Okay. And so this is
there's my boy Keith Olbermann.
Oh, let's see what he said. I didn't see this.
Orchestrated by the President of the United States of America. This was Donald Trump's 9/11. He must be removed from office immediately. Yeah. Even the National Association of Manufacturers, basically the most conservative element of corporate America, has called upon the vice president to seriously consider invoking the 25th Amendment to replace Trump.
Yep.
That will do for now. The plot was not complicated. Trump fomented terrorism stochastically. Trump refused the resources needed to stop the terrorism. Trump then intended to claim the situation was out of control and he would have to respond to an attack on democracy by suspending democracy. But just as importantly, the others who enabled this day of nightmares to come true must be held accountable. Congresswoman Bush is drawing up a bill of expulsion for those representatives who incited this terrorism, presumably including the Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy of the California 23rd. Just before the coup began, Senator Hawley of Missouri gave the insurrectionists a raised fist salute of support, and Rudy Giuliani called for, quote, trial by combat. Their careers are finished. The president's daughter, even in asking for the attack on the Capitol to end, called the traitorous mob, quote, American patriots.
Yes.
Treason clothing brand is now done. And Trump's terrorists who went into the Capitol or threatened state capitals will have to face charges of attempting to overthrow our government. Happily, their own social media feeds will likely be enough to convict them. Be of good cheer. This will end with democracy victorious, the coup disemboweled, and today's traitors facing trial. But what has been almost lost during this terrible day is that gangs of terrorists did not just attack the House and Senate physically, they also attacked in a way to make them suspend the confirmation of the Electoral College vote. What truly matters now is what happens when the Senate and House resume and reconvene and do their duty. That vote needs to be unanimous, because this was not the true stress test of our democracy. That is.
Yeah. That's right.
Good night and good luck.
Good luck. Quoting Edward Moreau.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had something he said for Bill, or she did rather. I think we saw this.
Some of the cosplayers. Oh, wow.
The cosplayers. Yeah. Look at this. But there was another one. These fools got their faces all out there, especially this dude. This dude was rushing up the stairs, and the cop, he was like the front one. The brother, the scream up the stairs.
You've got to remember, these are people who think this is their moment, right? You have to remember, this is their moment. Oh, that guy. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, he's going to be a star. This, you have to remember that this is how they see themselves. This is where the triumph in their mind, the triumphal music is swelling, right? This is the climax of the action. This is where they step out of the crowd and become heroes. This is what's going on in their mind.
And this is from the recount. Police response. Black Lives Matter on the left, pro-Trump on the right. Okay. Look at that.
Oh, yes. Yes, I remember. I'm aware.
Local police.
Yes, the taste test. The taste test is a very different kind of taste in one side and the other.
Yeah.
It's not just Crystal Pepsi versus Pepsi, is it, Cindy?
No. And no, not at all. And then it was like, Twitter removed one of his tweets. Yeah, but you know what? Then I got really upset. And I launched a vlog. I judge effective. And that one was this one because it was 45 minutes. I put this out 45 minutes before they took the action.
Hey, Twitter has got to, Jack Dorsey, you've got to stop enabling Trump. You share a lot of blame for this. You met with the president 2019, I believe it was April 24th, and came away pro-Trump, put out these new rules about platform manipulation, suspended my account after I made a vlog rightfully being concerned that Ivanka Trump's father was declaring war on Iran as we were attending CES or about to attend CES and she was going to speak there. This has gone far enough. You protect him. And now you're still protecting him. And not just me, but a number of people are saying, Jack, what are you waiting for? Cut him off. Okay? Now, Twitter took that particular tweet down. All right? But Adam is right. Twitter is also responsible for this. Mm-hmm. Take Trump's Twitter account or take your, share the blame. And, they keep mentioning what he says on Twitter and communicating it to everybody. And he says, why the fuck is he still allowed to tweet, Jack? What is wrong with you? I agree. This is ridiculous. I said, Jack, shut this man's account down. He is crazy terrorists who committed insurrection today. All right? Jack Dorsey, this is on you. This has got to stop. Everybody, I don't care where you are, tell Jack Dorsey to shut President Trump's Twitter account down as soon as possible. This is ridiculous. He's committing treason and Twitter's enabling him. Stop it.
About 45 minutes later, boom.
Hey, Twitter has got to.
It was about 45 minutes later, it was taken down. So, gone. And so now, we've got Biden's speech, and I thought Biden's speech was beautiful if you didn't see it. Did you see it?
Yeah. I've been monitoring the situation throughout.
Biden, he says, stop. He said enough. And I think the best thing to do is to go to his channel, which I'm a subscriber. Although let me fix this because this particular one's not subscribed. This is not my main channel. And let's see there. Elections and let me try this because they rearrange things here, but sometimes. All right, here we go. What's going on? This is just an hour ago. This should have come up here, and 3 weeks ago. Wow, they don't have it in order like they should. Uploads.
Is there a way to sort? Usually there is, yeah.
Yeah, there is a way. If I play all, I say Biden. You know what? I'll just go to the other one because something. They stopped. They rearranged his account so that you can't see in order what was posted, and why they did that, I don't know. But I quite really don't have the time to figure it out. Here's what CNBC captured right here. There. Play. Well, let's move this forward a bit. There it is. Play.
Sorry, not just an inconvenience, but I'm sorry for the reason I've delayed coming out to speak to you. I initially was going to talk about the economy, but all of you have been watching what I've been watching. At this hour, our democracy is under an unprecedented assault, unlike anything we've seen in modern times. An assault on the citadel of liberty, the Capitol itself. An assault on the people's representatives and the Capitol Hill police, sworn to protect them, and the public servants who work at the heart of our republic. An assault on the rule of law like few times we've ever seen it. An assault on the most sacred of American undertakings, the doing of the people's business. Let me be very clear. The scenes of chaos at the Capitol do not reflect a true America, do not represent who we are. What we're seeing are a small number of extremists dedicated to lawlessness. This is not dissent, it's disorder, it's chaos, orders on sedition, and it must end now. I call on this mob to pull back and allow the work of democracy to go forward. You've heard me say before in different contexts, the words of a president matter, no matter how good or bad that president is. At their best, the words of a president can inspire. At their worst, they can incite. Therefore, I call on President Trump to go on national television now to fulfill his oath and defend the Constitution and demand an end to this siege, to storm the Capitol, to smash windows, occupy offices, the floor of the United States Senate, rummaging through desks, on the Capitol, on the House of Representatives, threatening the safety of duly elected officials. It's not protest, it's insurrection. The world's watching. Like so many other Americans, I am genuinely shocked and saddened that our nation, so long the beacon of light and hope for democracy, has come to such a dark moment. Through war and strife, America's endured much. And we will endure here, and we will prevail again, and will prevail now. The work of the moment and the work of the next 4 years must be the restoration of democracy, of decency, honor, respect, the rule of law, just plain, simple decency. The renewal of the politics. It's about solving problems, looking out for one another, not stoking the flames of hate and chaos. As I said, America is about honor, decency, respect, tolerance. That's who we are. That's who we've always been. The certification of the Electoral College vote is supposed to be a sacred ritual. So we affirm purpose is to affirm the majesty of American democracy. Today's reminder, painful one, that democracy is fragile.
Yep.
To preserve it requires people of goodwill, leaders with the courage to stand up, who are devoted not to the pursuit of power, but or the personal interest pursuits of their own selfish interests at any cost, but of the common good. Think what our children watching television is thinking. Think what the rest of the world is looking at. For nearly 2.5 centuries, we, the people, in search of a more perfect union, have kept our eyes on that common good. America is so much better than what we've seen today. Watching the scenes from the Capitol, I was reminded, as I prepared other speeches in the past, I was reminded of the words of Abraham Lincoln in his annual message to Congress, whose work has today been interrupted by chaos. Here's what Lincoln said. He said, "We shall nobly save or merely lose the last best hope on earth." Went on to say, "The way is plain, peaceful, generous, just. A way which, if followed, the world will forever applaud,
Or
God must forever bless." The way is plain here too. That's who we are. It's the way of democracy, of respect, decency, of honor, and commitment as patriots to this nation. Notwithstanding what I saw today and we're seeing today, I remain optimistic about the incredible opportunities. There has never been anything we can't do when we do it together. And this god-awful display today is bringing home to every Republican and Democrat and Independent in the nation that we must step up. This is the United States of America. There's never, ever, 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 ever been a thing we've tried to do. We've done it together. We've not been able to do it. So, President Trump, step up. May God bless America. May God protect our troops and all those folks at the Capitol who are trying to preserve order. Thank you, and I'm sorry to have kept you waiting.
We've seen today.
Are you concerned about your inauguration, sir? Sir, have you spoken to McConnell today? Are you concerned about your inauguration, sir? Are you concerned about violence?
I am not concerned about my safety, security, or the inauguration. I am not concerned. The American people are going to stand up. Stand up now. Enough is enough is enough.
That's a meme right there. That's a meme. That's a heck of a speech. I think it's a good idea to. Oh, hey, here's Donald.
How's it going, guys?
Fine. You're not gonna justify all this, right?
Wait, before you get started, Lenny. I want to say this real quick. I'm disgusted by what I saw in Washington today. That is not what I'm about, not what I stand for. And I can't believe people went out and acted the way they acted today.
Oh, I can believe it because they've been telling you that's what they're going to do.
Wait a minute. Let me finish my point.
Yeah, go ahead.
These are, look, we can't, I don't want to be grouped into with a broad stroke of people that are about that. Some of us are not about that. These are the same people who said, they vilified Colin Kaepernick for kneeling down during the national anthem, but they would go and desecrate our capital like that. To me, what they did was far worse than anything I've ever seen in United States politics. Far, 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 far worse. I don't condone it. There are people that follow me that know that I particularly follow the red side, but through all of that, I'm still uh, I'm still for the people and I'm for the right thing. And everything we saw today was not the right thing, not the way to go about it. All right, now I can take on whatever you guys got to say.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, this is extremely predictable. And if you've been monitoring these people, they've been saying they were doing something like this for months. I mean, ever since the election results looked like it weren't going their way, they've made it clear they were going to do something like this. I'm not at all surprised. I could not be less surprised. The only surprise I really have is how weak the response was to them. That's the only thing that surprised me. But I should have remembered that they are a protected class, right? They don't suffer the same slings and arrows that the marchers in the 60s had to face, the peace movement faced, or Black Lives Matter movement faced, or anybody's had to face. They are a protected class. They're looked at, and even the daughter of the president called them American patriots, which is such a biting irony. There is a distinct problem in America when we see a group of people who can attack our nation's most important and the most central parts of our democracy and the most central parts of our society, and no one will call them terrorists, right? At least no one officially, like no one, the president, the director of the FBI, none of the people who should be stepping forward will not say these are domestic terrorists. These are domestic terrorists.
We kind of don't expect the president to do that.
Give me a moment. If these people had been a little more, a little slightly different shade and had names a little bit different, and if one person said one Allahu Akbar, it would have been on like a plate of neck bones. They would have shot them up, gassed them, stomped them out. You know it. I know it. Donald knows it. We all know that. The only reason that didn't happen is a bunch of white men. We all know that. Otherwise, they would have been in a world of hurt. This is what I have known for 30 plus years. This isn't some new thing. I talked about stories from when I was at Fort Campbell and when I was at Fort Bragg and when I was at Fort Benning, where there be these little cells of soldiers who would relace their boots when they were off duty to show their allegiance to these white nationalist movements. This isn't some new thing. This has been going on, of course, long before I was born, but I talked about this earlier, when the old Klan broke down, the Klan that 100 years ago literally could march down, the Palisades in Washington, 300, 400,000 deep. But World War II and some other things that happened started to break down the old Klan, and it sort of dissolved to a bunch of little mini clans. But what eventually happened was there were some intellectuals, Zenny, or at least that's how they presented themselves, who believed in the same ideas but didn't like what the Klan was doing. And so they decided to clean it up. They decided to make it respectable. And so when the Eagle Forum and American Heritage and a bunch of others, right, took some of these same things. They knew there was the passion and they had the money and they had the connections. And they took these things, and then when the religious wing of it, the Church of Christ Identity and the Sword Arm of the Lord and all those groups also came in from the Midwest and the North and the Northwest, and they all sort of met. Well, not physically met, but they all sort of found something they could rally around. And at first, for a long time, the Republican Party had nothing to do with them for a long time. But when Bannon and Sebastian Gorka and Stephen Miller and others started to, hey, we're not going to look down on you guys anymore. Come on, we want to talk. So now you had these sort of, the leatherback chair and scotch sippers. We're now talking to the Miller High Life guys. And so
you had the truck nuts and mud flaps guys were suddenly hanging with the Bentley drivers. And the one thing they had in common was they believed America should be a white country. Right? They might not have said it to everybody, but they said it to each other. And if you look at everything from the Know Nothing Party 180 something years ago to these people now, there is a through line of rejection of people who don't look a certain way, right? And don't believe a certain thing. So don't worship a certain God a certain way they worship them. And so when you come to where we are right now today, it's not something new. It's not something that popped up out of nowhere. It is a through line. I can draw back hundreds of years. And I can point to incidents that have popped up every few years, right? And so once it became unacceptable to be a Klan member, right? And you can be a polite society anymore and be a Klan member. They found a different way to do it. And this is part of that expression of that different way. And so no one's going to mention Steve Bannon's name today, or except maybe me. But you can draw a distinct line of connection, because you mentioned William F. Buckley, and William F. Buckley would not enjoy today's activities. He'd be shocked and appalled. He'd be shocked and appalled.
Well, but worse because you consider those people wackos.
Yeah, right. But despite that, there are people who grew up on William F. Buckley who decided that William F. Buckley's way was too effete and too weak, and that they had to get back down to red meat stuff, right? And they did.
Because to defend William F. Buckley, who's an intellectual hero of mine, William F. Buckley realized that racism in and of itself was bad.
I'm not disputing that. I'm saying that people who like you grew up on.
Well, my point is this, Bill. William F. Buckley believed that people who were racist had a massive problem. And I watched Firing Line religiously when it was originally on. I was a little kid.
Sure. And you and me both.
Yeah, Muhammad Ali on, a great range of people that you
had Farrakhan on. I watched Firing Line too.
Right. So my point is, I think William F. Buckley would be insulted today.
He would be horrified. Yes.
No, he would be insulted to even be associated with them. He would tell you they're not conservative at all.
Oh, I'm sure that's what he would say. But here's what I'm pointing out: is that people who also grew up on William F. Buckley.
Wait a minute. True conservatives, of which I am, have respect for institutions and the rule of law. What people tend to forget is that a person like myself who seeks social change, you can only reach social change by changing laws. The people that you're talking about, they don't care to apply themselves to understand the stern and drum of changing a law, let alone writing a bill. Okay? They don't do that. And I know that from personal experience at Close Up, trying to teach for kids, some who come from backgrounds like that in Texas, and it goes through one ear out the other. And fortunately, they're among the minority in my classes in terms of number and brain power. And they were overwhelmed by a much smaller group of kids that I was fortunate to have. All right. But what's happened in today's society is those folks can go and play video games, and they have text messages. And as long as they have a little bit of money to get by and something to entertain them, and maybe somebody like Trump to enable them and give them money, they're cool. Money comes back to this. And I'm glad Jessica presented what I'm about to show you to me, because it's further proof of my point that these people were bought and paid for, and they were not protesters in the authentic sense. This guy right here, boom, there, okay? Same.
Yes, there he is.
Right. Same.
I remember him. Yes.
Okay. This was the photograph on the extreme right. Is the same gentleman as is on the left, but that's with Rudy Giuliani in May of 2020. All right. My point is that the Trump campaign has had $1 billion war chest, and I told the mayor when her house got attacked in June that it happened just hours after Trump mentioned Oakland and gave this nod. I said, I called Libby and I said, hey, something's going on with Oakland. That's a signal. And sure enough, her house got attacked by a group of 30 protesters that to this day no one can identify or have been arrested. Because if they're arrested, they would have been identified. This is a money play for power. And the people who are involved, they don't follow this classic oh, I'm mad because of the white thing and yada yada yada. These folks are playing roles because they are paid. You hear me? They are paid. Now,
both things can be true, Zenny. Both things can be true.
Hold on a second. The reason why I bristle and I push back against you, Bill, some of the stuff you present it as if there's nothing you can do about it. I'm about change.
No, that's not what I said.
Okay.
Where did you get that from? When did I say that?
No, I said it's my interpretation of how you're presenting.
Well, you misinterpreted.
Okay, but I'll tell you, ask me, when did I say that? I'll give you one example of where I got that from. You were saying it's going to take 50 years. So I
don't know how long it will take. I don't know.
That's it. I'm about solving a problem right now. And and my issue is that some of us, all right, here's the other problem and I'm going to say something that some people aren't going to like. The other reason this privilege happens is we're too busy pointing it out, and we skip over the one fact that we don't like each other. Black folks, if black folks like each other better, there are things
that's not accidental either, isn't it?
There are things that we are not. I'm not saying you say that. I'm saying this in general. Okay, there are things that we allow to happen.
Sure.
All right. That I was looking at the mom, and someone says, "Well, black, we allow that to happen." We don't, and it speaks to our better nature and this is why I hold that we are institutionally conservative, because we have enough respect, true respect for the rule of law, that we don't go busting up stuff like that. And at all, we have many examples of us behaving in the law, between the lines, even when the law hits us upside the head with a billy club or worse.
Yes, as it did for a long, long time.
And still does.
Here's the point. Here's the point I'm trying to make. That the first thing you have to do when you want to turn captives into slaves is you have to keep them from working together. What's the best way to keep them from working together, right? By making sure they don't like each other, that they hate what they see when they look at themselves, and they hate what they see when they look at each other. This wasn't an accident. This is on purpose, okay? This is something that's how you turn people into slaves, right? You can't have them like themselves or like each other, because if they do, you won't have slaves. You'll have captives and they will revolt.
But my point is, we have to get to a point where we universally stop being manipulated. I think we're getting there in various aspects of society, but we're not there yet. And we don't get there when you have young people trying to cancel older people, even President Obama. We allowed this stuff to happen. Okay, we allowed it, and now, fortunately, down here in Georgia, we rose up in the way that you're supposed to rise up. You vote.
That's how you rise.
So large that you can't ignore it. And thankfully, the advertising community did a little bitty small thing that you pointed out, Bill, that I think has been very powerful. It might have incited some of the people you're talking about, but I think it also incited positive change. And that's every time you look at a commercial now, you see what? You see interracial marriages of all kinds of combinations. It used to be mostly black, women and white guys, but now you can't even say that's that anymore. It's everything.
Yes, it is.
Asian and black. It's beautiful.
Yeah, sure.
And it's like I told you, it's a personal growth for me in terms of what I've seen in the United States, because I never thought prior to 1986 that I would ever see anybody look like me in a magazine. Do you know what changed that? In 86, I saw myself, not myself, but a person who looked like me in a magazine, and I froze because I was shocked because the guy looked so much like me.
Yeah, I used to have a Ebony Jr. Subscription when I was a little kid, so I lots of kids look like me and Ebony Jr. But yeah,
I had Ebony Jr. But my point is that to pick up a Vogue and see a guy who looks like me in Vogue,
and
I froze.
Quarterly and things like that. Yes, right. Yeah, very eventually.
That little image.
Representation matters. We all know that.
Right.
I've worked at the entertainment industry.
But now we've got representation. Well, now we've got ownership, because I'm about ownership. That's the next tier, okay? And we're finally getting there, because I always said that if you own something, like look at the rap community, which really I think played a great role in integrating us. Rappers created the music that white girls wanted to hear. And why? Because not only because that was good, it pissed their parents off.
Which is always what kids want to do with their music. Yeah.
Right. So it was like, perfect.
Going back literally thousands of years.
Right. And then you look at the way it actually forced by culture the integration that lasts today. All right. And no one could say maybe that was the seeds of, what we're talking about today, what we're dealing with. But, I don't know how to square that circle. But my point is integration solves the problem. Now we have to make sure that money is integrated. Now, and we need to go about socially engineering America to become the America that we desire.
Which goes back to my reconciliation.
Because
we never had one.
We need to, but we have a guy in Donald Trump that knew the only way he can win was to implement the Southern strategy nobody wanted to do. But he had no problem trying to destroy us to do it. And I contend right now that someone, either in Russia or China or both, is on the hook to give him a lot of money for what he has done. Okay?
I would argue that they probably already have given him a lot of money for what he's done.
But I would say I stand corrected because I agree with you.
It's funny because I'm old enough to remember when the Republicans were always cautioning us to not trust Russia. But it's interesting to see how all these things change, right? Money changes everything. Here's the very root of what I'm trying to get to, is we've never, ever, ever, as a nation, faced up to what actually happened here. And we've never talked about the trauma. We've never talked about the things that grew from that trauma. And we never talked about treating the trauma that came from America's, as they call it, America's original sin. Never. Not once. The closest we got was what Bill Clinton said, "I'm sorry," right? Turn the page, right? That's as close as we got. A one somewhat heartfelt "I'm sorry" from Bill Clinton. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I see it.
Which is great, but it doesn't fix anything.
My point is that you said, I'm stuck on this 50 years thing.
Well, I just threw a number out there. Who knows how long it'll take, Zeddy? It took us almost 300 years to dig the hole. I don't know how long it'll take us to fill it in.
Like I've said this with Oakland, because when I went to Oakland and I worked for the city of Oakland, Oakland was known as a black city. It was black ran. Yeah,
and I know. I remember.
Was proud of that. And so my boss, the mayor of Oakland, was black. Our city manager was black. Our department heads were black. And I remember there were people in the hills, mostly white, who actually they would always make fun of them, like, oh, they wanted you knew what they wanted. They wanted Oakland to be run by white folks. And we had that, and it's even worse. So my point is, what I said back then, and I said this to the mayor, I said, Libby, when she was running, I said, hey, do this. I said, look, the Oakland City Charter has to have an amendment to force diversity, because I'm telling you, this stuff happened by accident, and it's not going to sustain itself unless we look it in the eye. So when you say look in the eye and reckoning, to me, the reckoning that we have to deal with right now is that we don't have policies to force diversity. We talk about it, the stuff that we talk about as a nation, now we talked about as a city of Oakland, and the Bay Area was, way ahead of a lot of places.
Sure. Yes, the Bay Area was way ahead of a lot of places for a long time.
And now the nation is there. But we need to have policies, and I think they're coming, that impose diversity in our society and say, hey, look, you've got to do this because it's for our national health, our national mental health, and our national security. And we have to have an economic diversity too. Those two things that were those are the center of the thesis that I wrote at Cal in '87. Right? We need to do those things. And we're on. Hey guys, I want you to help me here. We've got some questions here. Stephen Marcus says, "Do you think this was staged? It's awful easy to get into the Capitol and then take pictures all over against each other."
I think Stephen is making the mistake some people make, that when they see a pile of garbage with flies around it, that the flies brought the garbage. No, the media is always there. It's the Capitol, but especially when you hear all the police scanner or whatever it is, that something's jumping off. So no, the media didn't stage this. The media covered it.
but they didn't stage it. Was it staged? It was staged only in the sense that the people I've been talking about have been talking about this for months. You know, if you are the kind of person that looks at what some of these gun clubs and so, you know, once again, Donald, I'm not taking a shot at you, but some of these people belong to gun clubs, right? And these gun clubs aren't gun clubs. I mean, they maybe also are gun clubs, but mostly they're ways for white supremacists to meet without calling them the Klan or whatever.
Well, some of these people like these are political operatives. These are the guys in Ukraine trying to overthrow governments.
Sure, yes, but they also are building networks in these militias and Proud Boys and 3%ers and gun clubs and whatever else you want to throw in there. That's how where they're getting the grassroots foot soldiers.
Not all of them, and the reason why I say that is because there is, and I know, look, there are a group of people that Trump has surrounded himself with. Roger Stone.
Sure. We talked about Gorka. We talked about Stone. We talked about Bannon. Yes.
No, I'm not talking about guys you've heard of. I'm talking about guys you haven't heard of. Like, you ever heard of Peter F. Paul?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about Peter F. Paul.
So there are, I want to say, what's the word? Apparatchiks, I guess is what you'd call them in Russian. There have always been these little intermediaries or people who make these carve-outs or whatever term you want to use, where you take people that used to work sometimes in industry, sometimes in government, and you, in these little companies or shell companies or pretend companies in some cases, bring these people together. And sometimes you say someone's on the board of such and such, and you pay them a $300,000 salary for this do-nothing business. I know that he's been part of a couple of those in the past. I don't know if he's still doing it. I haven't tracked him in the last.
That's not Peter F. Paul. Let me tell you who Peter F. Paul is. Peter F. Paul is an entrepreneur who is famous for the following. First of all, in 1971, he defrauded Fidel Castro in the Cuban Coffee Caper.
And there were cutout corporations that the CIA.
Hold on. No, Bill, listen. Just listen.
Okay.
Without you forming an answer. Because there's stuff that I'm about to say that you don't know. Okay? Then, in 1976, he produced what was then the largest fundraiser for a candidate for Reagan, the bicentennial. He gave a parade in the bicentennial season. And then for Hillary Clinton in 2000, he made an even bigger party, actually in 2001, when she was running for New York Senate. It was the largest event ever held for a political person to history at that point. And then he partnered with Stan Lee to create the first Marvel Comics entertainment. And they were setting up to put this to go public. And in the middle of that, before that, but between it, he sued the Clinton campaign. And then the Clinton campaign was also sued by the Federal Elections Commission 3 times for violations. Okay, the reason why I know all of this and more is because when I was writing on my blog, my first blog, Zenny62.com, which is Zenny2005.blogspot.com at the time, or Zenny Zeitgeist, I was writing to help President Obama when he was senator, and I had discovered that the Clinton campaign back then had defrauded the Federal Elections Commission that many times, 3. Who put it out there was Peter F. Paul. So I blogged about it, and on the 5th of November of 2007, I was sitting outside here, and I got a call from none other than, hello, is this Zenny? Yes, this is Peter F. Paul, that guy. And so he proceeded to feed me a ton of information and then hooked me up with a guy named Doug from Upland. These are both Republican operatives. Peter F. Paul is this kind of guy. He's so smart that if there was a picture in the dictionary next to too smart for his own good, it would be his. All right? He was too smart or too cute by half. He, in getting involved with Stan Lee, had set up a kind of a stock fixing program that wound him up in jail. He got out of jail on 2014, I believe. December 9th of 2014 he was supposed to be out. He called him before he went to jail and afterward. He always gave me advice about starting my companies, always encouraged me to go in business for myself. and always encouraged me to get the racist message out of my head. He's white, to move forward. Okay. So my point is there are guys like him that are all over DC. Okay.
Yeah.
The guys that I'm pointing to in this picture, Rudy and that other guy, they're part of it. They want you to believe they're white supremacists. They want you to believe they're racist. Why? It fits with your narrative. It makes it all so easy, and it lets them get what they actually set out to achieve, or so they realize in many cases. All right. So
sure, I get the professional wrestling aspect of it. Here's what I'm saying.
No. Wait. These people are described in one word. You know what that word is? Because I've been that. They're called fixers.
Oh, yes, right. The fixers.
All right. And my point is you have to always be aware of and always have your intent out for when you're being gamed and fixed.
Sure.
And I say that because, all right, they will take your ideas and your prejudices and your ideas about how you think things work, and they'll design a scenario to make you believe that while you're over here and they're off over there. That's what
I get all that. I'm not unfamiliar with all that, but I'm also saying, since we're talking about this, your boy Peter F. Paul also was involved with helping the CIA with anti-Castro cutouts, or whatever term you want to use. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's also true.
That's where the Cuban coffee caper came from.
So we're not disagreeing.
But I personally know Peter. Okay. And so I'm trying to explain to you is there's other things that he asked me to do when they got what they needed from me with respect to Obama. I was helping Obama that I refused it because it was against Obama. I'm trying to tell you that three of these guys, at least four of them, one of those guys I came this close to meeting. Do you know who that guy's name was? He just got pardoned by the president.
Oh, okay.
Take a guess.
Well, it could either be he pardoned a bunch of people: Stone, Flynn, Pickles.
Roger Stone.
Okay, Stone.
The other. Okay, so my point is, Washington is crawling with all over the place with these guys that are basically shadow governments. They surfaced in a way that had to do with financing the Sandinistas in the 80s.
And a bunch of other stuff, yes.
But more specifically to this, because when I was writing for the Monclarian, all right, Gary Webb had a book called Dark Alliance.
I'm very familiar with Gary Webb and his book.
Right. I called Gary and I interviewed him. We had a great conversation. Dark Alliance, if you're not familiar with it, folks.
And the government gaslighted him while we're at it. But yeah, go ahead.
That's another story. The book, okay, that's part of a gigantic story. The book, and my interest in it was that Gary Webb swore up and down that that drugs were being ran from Nicaragua to San Jose and distributed for sale in the Bay Area to finance their anti-communist efforts in Central America. All right. He told me, did Gary Webb. He said that there's a guy that he wanted me to interview at the time, again, it's 1994, who was at the North County Jail in Oakland, named Renalfo Conejo. Charlie Sumner, who is our chief of police, the chief of our Alameda County Sheriff at the time, would not let me talk to him. If I had been able to talk to him, I could have blown the lid wide open off that story. All right. But these guys were doing it. Why? Because they're trying to advance conservative political objectives. You ever see Charlie Wilson's War? It's the same thing. Washington is crawling for these things. They were crawling with them then and now.
Sure.
It's so bad that when Stan Lee was around, rest in peace, I went over to him. I said, "Hey, can I interview you about Peter F. Paul?" No. All right. Those dudes over there, like Rudy has become that kind of guy. Rudy has become a fixer.
Yeah.
Michael Cohen was a fixer for Trump. All right.
Oh.
These guys, and they don't care who they hurt.
And Trump's political godfather was a fixer, Roy Cohn. I mean, yes, he's been surrounded by fixers his whole life.
But my point is, that's him. But my point is this: when you go to Washington, these fixers were around before Trump.
Yes,
they crawl
long before.
They do business for Congress people that you don't even know about.
Sure,
For both sides.
But my point is to say sure is one thing. What I'm getting at is how we change things to stop it. What I hate personally is when people say, "Oh, sure, like I know that." Well, if you know it, fix it. Figure out a policy or an idea to fix the stuff. Don't tell me what is.
Okay,
especially when I'm living it.
Okay, so let's.
You get my drift? No, do you get my drift?
So let's get to that because you brought up something I'd like to actually talk about. So getting back to so not all of this, but some of this, we talked earlier about Citizens United, right? So with people saying that, well, money is political speech, right? It's made, like I said, the dark money doesn't have to be dark money anymore. You can just let it all come to light since it's all free speech. We have to separate, right? The machinery, right, is now lubricated by cash, right? And the cash comes from a lot of people. If we were to say we're going to make it so that there has to be a sharp firewall, right? And anybody who's found bringing the cash in to influence the way that our political process works, you're gone. You know, we're going to, you might be in a club fed, but you're doing 3 years somewhere. And if you were a lawyer, you're disbarred because half these people are lawyers. And in addition, you know, you can never lobby again. You can never, basically you can't lunch in this town again. Because right now there's very few laws, very few rules, and what few are there are almost toothless, right? So when someone does get found, they've done something, it's like, oh, well, don't do it again, right?
oh, you little boy. Yep.
Right. It's an insult, right? I mean, it's not even a traffic ticket to these people. So you've got to change the math because right now they pay a fine that, you know, is less than what they probably spend on gifts to people. Mm-hmm. And they're back in business, right? Yep. Or maybe they change the name. Maybe they shut this one down and open a different one over here, but it doesn't do anything. And I don't care if they're in a club fed, but make them go away. You go away for 3 years when we catch you from now on. 3 years, right? 3 years minimum. Sure, it might be a nice prison, but it's a prison. And I think you will see some things change if there was some real teeth to people monkeying around with all this influence peddling and all this stuff that's going on. Make them go away for 3 years. I don't care if it's a nice prison. Go away for 3 years to a nice prison then. But as nice as it is, it's still a prison. And I think that'll be one thing that you want solutions. I have a list of things I think will fix this, some of it at least. So obviously I can't get them to reverse the Citizens United decision. I'd love if I could wave my magic wand and do that. And in fact, we've had people put forth things that would truly reform our election process in terms of what money does. And everyone has shouted those people down, right? Well, not everyone, but the people in power have shouted those people down because everyone's afraid, well, what will happen if someone turns off the money spigot, right? What will happen? How will we win elections if we don't have all these millions and millions of dollars flowing through? And other countries manage it, obviously. It can be done here too. I mean, when I think about, obviously I'm going way, way, way back, but I'm thinking about how people used to campaign, even in national elections. You didn't have to have this huge war chest. Somebody would finish, fighting on the plains or finish whatever it is, and, be a poor country lawyer or whatever it is. And they would say, I'm going to run for such and such, right? They would, talk to a few benefactors. They would go on a whistle stop tour, shake a few hands, kiss a few babies. And you might get your gut stomped out by the incumbent, but you could put on a showing, right? You could make a showing of it for almost no money, even at a national level, and in the last 60 years, it's not just that running a national election has gone up. It hasn't gone up like this, Zinni. It's gone up like this. It's gone up like this crazy, crazy angle where the money just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Every election is the most expensive election we've ever seen, and by a factor of 381% and crazy numbers like that. So the arms race has gotten to a point where mutual assured destruction is upon us, right? Where it's only going to be people who are cozied up to billionaires who will get a chance to run for president or even run for senator, really. I mean, where it is now with what it costs. And if we could change that, it could be changed at the local level. It could be changed at the state level. Referendums still work, people. We can still have referendums. So we can't undo what the Supreme Court did, but we can do something to put the brakes on before this. I mean, it's already spiraled out of control, but before it spirals into the sun.
I want to check something with you.
Oh, the bat phone.
Yeah. One moment, please.
Yeah, but Don, let me make it clear, I'm not here to attack you. I personally like guns. I was a paratrooper. You don't become a paratrooper if you don't like guns. But there's a culture that's built up around guns in America that's just unhealthy. There's no two ways around that.
Guys, can we do this? I need to go.
Okay. Do your thing, man.
Say again?
Do your thing.
Okay, do you want me to leave you guys talking and running the show?
You can, yeah.
You got this.
Okay, cool. All right.
Point counterpoint style, old school.
Old school. Hey, folks, I will see you all. I'm leaving the show to these great gentlemen, professionals. It is in their hands. I will see you all. All right, see you.
Take care, Zen.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to pile on at all. That's not in my character. It's not who I am. There's nothing victorious or enjoyable about this for me either. I mean, I literally took an oath to defend this nation against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And when I look at these people, and they have the nerve, some of them, to, throw on gear similar to the gear I used to wear, and walk around like they're defending something, right? It definitely makes me a little bit angry. And I'm not one of those people who truly, truly, truly believes this can't be fixed. Despite what Zenny said about me saying, when I said 50 years, I mean, when you dig a hole, like I said, for 300 years, I'm not going to say you can fix it in 5. Who knows? Maybe it'll take 10 years. I don't know how long it'll take. But we've never had a national reconciliation program. Unlike South Africa, unlike some places, we've never had something where we bring forth the traumatizers and the traumatized in terms of what's happened to our country in terms of things like race, and said in this open forum where you do not have to fear being punished. We're not here. This is not a trial. We're not here to, drag you away and put you in chains or whatever. But we want to hear, how did you get here? How did this happen? And for the people who have been the victims, we want you to hear what you did to them, right? Not because we want you to feel bad, but because we want you to understand these are actually human beings, and what you did, and maybe you will feel bad, but that's not even the point. But what you did, what you said, the actions you took, the people you encouraged, the things that when a child's watching the Rodney King, beatings, whether or not Rodney King was speeding, whether or not Rodney King may or may not have had PCP in his system, which turns out he did not. He had other things in his system, but not PCP. Whatever it is, that child, if that's a Black child, they're realizing that they are not American in the same ways that their white friends are, right? No one has to tell them that. Their eyes work. So we haven't ever dealt with that generation of kids that watch things like the Rodney King beating. No one's said to our nation of children that watch that, here's what should have happened, here's what did happen, and please talk to us about how this made you feel. There's never been a national reconciliation around what happened during the Jim Crow era, what happened during slavery, what happened during any time in American history. We've always been this, you know what, that was a long time ago, forget about it, it'll be fine, right? That's how we treat everything in America. Rub some dirt on it, you'll be fine, walk it off, right? You're not a slave anymore, walk it off. You know what? Yeah, we lynched a lot of people, walk it off. Yeah, you watch somebody drag your daddy away, you never saw him again, walk it off. That's how we've handled these things, Donald. We've never said we're going to deal with our national trauma in a real way. No one has ever done that, ever in our nation. And trauma makes you crazy. So crazy things happen. And it makes not just the people who are being traumatized crazy, but the people who are committing the traumatic things, the traumatizers, it's affecting them too. So I understand that when someone does something terrible, even if they think it doesn't affect them, it does. That police officer that shoots a kid who wasn't armed isn't the same person after that, right? They're not. They may pretend they are, but they're not, right? I've seen combat, okay? You're not the same after that. I don't care if all you did was bring ammo to the front, you're a different person after that. So yes, if you are a person that choked someone to death, shot someone, whatever it is, you did some terrible thing, even if you told yourself you were justified, you're not the same person after that. It affects you, and it affects the way you treat your own children, it affects the way you interact with everyone around you. You're a different person. And we never deal with that national trauma. We have trauma as a nation that dates back generations that we've never even attempted to deal with. We've never tried. I don't know if we can do it, but I know we've never tried. There's never been a national attempt. Our best chance would have been during Reconstruction, obviously, right? We had an actual department called the Freedmen's Bureau that was supposed to help the newly freed people reintegrate into society. And two things happened. Originally, the Freedmen's Bureau was tiny, poorly funded. The president, Andrew Johnson, who himself was a Tennessean, though he never, supported leaving the Union, he was a Southerner and not really a huge fan of Black people himself, sort of hamstrung the Freedmen's Bureau until eventually they were able to override him, just through having enough power to override everything he did in Congress and the Senate because they'd expelled the Democrats, basically. So the Republicans, during the phase people sometimes called radical Reconstruction, which wasn't nearly radical enough in my view, but they began to actually get some things done, a little bit. But it lasted really less than a dozen years. It lasted, by 1876, the party was pretty much over, right? All the attempts to fix the things that had happened during all those years of slavery were over. And you had judges, handing down, it's funny because we talk about things now, and when I read these articles and these writings of people from 1877, 1876, 1878, they're talking about how, well, we shouldn't give these people special treatment anymore. Why should we have to protect them, right? Why should we have to send federal troops to keep them from being lynched? Why, they're citizens like everybody else. Make it on your own, right? They're saying this in 1877. So to pretend like we've dealt with this is just disingenuous. At no point have we had a concerted, serious effort to fix everything or even any of the things that happened as a result of slavery, the Jim Crow era, the Red Summer of 1919, where American soldiers, Black soldiers in uniform on trains got dragged off trains and lynched. Not one or two, bunches of them. Did you know that, Donald?
I do know that. But my thing is to you, to everybody watching, what is the point? Why we can't just walk forward? Why do we even have to deal with it?
You can't walk forward if you haven't built something to walk on. There's nothing to walk on, Donald.
There's plenty to walk. See, and that's where I disagree with you. That's where,
when did we build a structure for us to fix all of this so we can walk forward, is what I'm asking you.
There doesn't have to be a certain built structure. And as a matter of fact, all of this is just feelings.
It's not just feelings. Trauma.
A lot of it
is your brain chemistry, Donald.
For somebody like me, I compartmentalize a lot of that stuff.
Oh, I'm sure you do. But I'm sure you do it.
And I know I'm not the only one.
We all have to, so we don't go crazy. But my point is, there's a healthier way to handle all of that.
Not for the masses. Because there's always somebody that's going to want to go left or go right.
So whether or not somebody wants to go left or go right, if that person has had an opportunity to have either the trauma they've perpetrated or the trauma they have sustained, dealt with, they may not go as far, or they may not go as dangerously far as they would go if that trauma is untreated, or if the trauma that they perpetrated goes unexplained, unexplored, and untreated. You're talking about like not going to the doctor so you won't find out you have cancer, so now you don't have cancer. Like, no, you have to find out you have cancer and then treat the cancer, which we haven't done. Treat the cancer.
Yeah, I still disagree with that.
You can disagree, but it doesn't mean that the cancer won't keep growing just because you don't acknowledge. I'm compartmentalizing the cancer. Ignore that.
But I don't see a cancer.
You do not.
I don't see it.
You do not. You do not see racism as a cancer.
It's nowhere near the way it used to be.
Well, I mean, people aren't being pulled off buses and trains and lynched anymore. I'll agree with that. Yeah, but it hasn't gone away. It's expressed differently.
It's never going to go away.
Okay with that. I'm not okay with it. I want to deal with it.
It's never going to go away.
I didn't say go away. I said deal with it. That's two different things.
And I believe to deal with it.
I said explore it, right? Treat it, right? Because sometimes cancer comes back, right? But doesn't mean you don't treat the cancer because you're afraid it might come back. Like, make it make sense. If you know there's a problem, right? You attack that problem with everything you've got. Whether it comes back or not, whether you completely wipe the problem out or not, doesn't mean you don't treat it. Like, where's the sense in saying I'm not going to deal with it because it might not go away, or I might not get all of it?
You guys, the way I see it, this cancer that you speak of, it's been treated already.
Really? Who treated it when? Who treated this cancer and when? And how?
The American people treated it.
How did they do it? When did this happen?
This happened on November 3rd, 2020. It started then, and this is the process. It's carrying over. It's carrying over now. It's carrying over now. So people.
I'll give it a chance. I'll give it a chance. I'll give it a chance to work. I hope you're right. I hope this is the medicine that we needed. I would like to agree with you. I don't want to disagree. I want to agree. I hope you're right. I hope you're wrong.
The message has been unity from the dominant political power. That's what they're saying that they're going to explore. Yes. So even though I disagree with a lot of their tactics, people like me are sitting back and giving it a chance.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Donald. And hopefully most of us will give it a chance. All I'm saying is that you're still sort of sprinkling water sort of generally everywhere instead of pouring the fire hose on the fire, right? You got sprinkling water everywhere. And who knows, maybe that'll work. I'm not saying it won't. I'm going to, like you said, I'm going to give it a chance. I would prefer to get a bunch of fire hoses and put them directly on the fire. That's the only thing I'm saying. As opposed to just sprinkling water sort of in a general jet direction and hoping the fire goes out. I want to pour all the resources that I can directly onto the fire. But hey, different strokes for different folks. That's just my preference.
And then on top of that, if I could just go back to like today's events.
Yes, let's do that.
People were emotionally invested in these elections on both sides. But the people on, like, I hate to say it like this, but even though I'm a Republican, I like to believe that I'm a Republican with common sense.
Okay, sure, let's go with that. Continue.
But there was like a lot of people out there today where they just decided to leave common sense at home in the car.
I would like to believe they left it. I don't think they had to leave, but I'll go with your theory on this one.
I mean, I know some people. I know people that I went to high school with, that I've worked with, that left California last Saturday to go to the rally. It was just supposed to be a rally, and I know that they were going there just to go to the rally. One guy is a pastor here in Napa. There's another guy who's at a very, very famous church in Oakland, California, that went. And I know these guys. You know, they're like really, really professional,
Yeah.
smart guys.
Oh,
They-
intelligence doesn't have anything to do with it. People paint these people as toothless rednecks, but these are a lot of people who have some of them are lawyers, doctors, engineers.
But these are like black people that I know that just got caught up in the mob mentality today. They just got. They were there, and the next thing, like you know, I can show you a text from a guy. I text him, hey, you okay? You're not you know, you safe? He like he hit me back, yo, I just got gassed, you know. Like and I'm knowing he's in the middle of it. And I'm just
yeah. Well, that says it all right there. That says it all right there.
I'm just like, wow.
So this gets back to what I'm saying about national reconciliation. And I mean, like I said, I'd love for you to be right that this is the process and that it's already begun and that we don't need to do anything special, just all happen. That would be great.
But I'm not saying that either. I'm saying this is the beginning of the process.
Okay. And I'm cool with that. Once again, I want you to be right. I'm an optimistic person, so I want you to be right. I want you to be right about this so that my daughter will grow up in a country where this kind of foolishness never happens again.
Yeah, I don't see that happening either. Like
then now back to what I was saying. That's back to what I was saying.
I don't think it'll be over racism, but I do believe, you know, because the way things are going, right now there's a reconciliation. There will be a reconciliation between the racism in this country. But I don't think that's the biggest problem in this country no more. The biggest problem in this country, to me, is the gap between the rich and the poor.
Sure. And that's been something that's been going out of control for a long time. And the answer to that, right? Do you want to know which of our government programs has actually had the greatest success in bringing people from poverty to middle or even upper class? Do you know what program has actually had the greatest success in doing that? Do you want to take a guess?
Nah.
The Pell Grant. The Pell Grant is more successful than welfare in terms of bringing people SNAP or TANF or any of the other programs you want to mention. The most successful program in taking people from being below the poverty line to several times above the poverty line to, in some cases, doing extremely well has been the Pell Grant program, right? That allows students who could not afford to go to college to be afford to go to college. Now, I understand not everybody's going to want to go to college. I don't care if it's college or some sort of other training program, but the thing that's going to do the most, and it's funny because people got all over Bernie Sanders and others when they talked about, you know, making community college free for everybody. I don't care if that's what you call it, or if you call it something else, or if you roll it into something like the old, Works Projects Agency that helped some of my grandfather's younger brothers and sisters to get their first real jobs off the farm, right? Was during the Depression when the WPA and the Civilian Conservation Corps and things like that were rolled out as part of the New Deal. Call it what you will. But if you have something that's out there that's a paid training program or some sort of educational and training program that is open to all and allows people, regardless of their level of education they have coming in, to leave this program with the ability now to feed themselves. and support themselves and their families if they decide to have one. That's been proven to be more effective than, and once again, I'm not against, some of these basic establishing a basic, basic income or whatever. I'm not against that necessarily, but the thing that has been proven, right, when you track the most successful program that the federal government has ever had in terms of bringing people out of poverty, the most successful one, more successful than all the others, really put together, Pell Grant. More successful than all the welfare and welfare sort of related programs put together by itself. Pell Grant blows them away, right? So that's, to me, the goal. You want to open that golden door to upward mobility. It's education and training, and that's been proven. Like it's not even disputable, right? Look at the data, right? The people who graduate with at least an associate's degree or a certificate are now making 2 or 3 times what they made when they just had high school. And people who haven't finished high school, right? I mean, I'm not saying they can't survive, but it's a fight. It's a real fight just to live. You don't at least have a high school diploma. And as you go up and up and up, I mean, I'm not saying there's nobody who has a PhD who's homeless, but there's not a whole lot of people who have PhDs who are homeless or master's degrees or even college degrees. Do they exist? Sure, right? But when you give someone skills, training, and education, they are much more likely to succeed than just giving them money, right? Giving them money, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it solves.
It enables them not to go do better.
Well, even if it doesn't, I'm not saying even that's the issue, right? But the real issue is that it doesn't give them skills. Money doesn't give you skill to even manage the money you've been given. That's the real issue, right? Because think of all the stories we've heard about young people with low levels of education and training and experience in the world who suddenly get money, whether it be from an injury settlement or winning the lottery or, getting signed as an artist sometimes. And then they blow through that money like that. And, we hear about them dying in their old neighborhood 7 years later. So money by itself isn't the solution. Just like when Zinni tried to say money is going to solve racism, it's like, no, there's lots of rich racists, Zinni. I'm not saying, he's talking about some of these people who they're expressing economic anxiety and it's dressed as racism. That's some of them. It's not all of them. Some of them are just dyed-in-the-wool racist. And money, you can give them all the money in the world, wouldn't change that. But yes, it would help some of those people. But what I'm getting to, or what I'm trying to get to, is income inequality. Simply handing people money will never fix that. Handing people skills and training and making a part of that, partnering with, giving them opportunities to get to know people in the industry, right? Because once again, it's not just what you know, it's who you know. So if you bundle with these things, these public-private partnerships, these private corporations give you someone, a mentor, someone who's already in the industry with whom you get to communicate. Zoom call, email, whatever. I'm not saying this person's going to spend 12 hours, or 20 hours or whatever with you. No, it might be,
30 minutes,
a couple hours a month, but a couple hours a month with somebody who's a structural engineer and you want to be a structural engineer is still, worth its weight in gold. So these are not insoluble problems. Zinni somehow thought I was saying these things can't be solved. And I said the exact opposite. I said these things aren't being solved. I didn't say they can't be solved. They aren't being solved because, one, we aren't even trying to solve some of them. We aren't trying to solve some of these problems. We aren't even attempting it. Like there's never been, like I said, a national attempt to bring about reconciliation. No. We may talk about it, but we don't do anything about it. And you can't just talk about it. People have been talking about it since literally before the end of the Civil War. They've been talking about reconciliation. When it looked like the North was going to win, they started talking about reconciliation, but they never did anything about it. They never had these, once again, like the Truth and Reconciliation tribunals like that in South Africa. Did you watch the documentary that was made about the Truth and Reconciliation tribunals in South Africa?
Nope, but I'm going to look it up tomorrow.
I cannot recommend it highly enough. One of the things that hit me very deeply was they had this very famous or infamous Afrikaans member of a very well-known and notorious part of the Johannesburg police force that dealt with, I guess basically what we would call the riot squad or whatever. And he was legendarily brutal. Big, sort of Dolph Lundgren-esque guy, probably about 6'4", 6'5", probably 235, 240. Like,
I know the type.
You can picture the guy I'm talking about. And he's got the thick Afrikaans accent. And he's this huge, bull-necked dude. And you could see like, oh man, this guy. Yeah. But he has this moment where he's talking about this moment where he has beaten this child bloody, right? During a child, like no more than probably 9 or 10 years old. And how hard he had to sort of shut down himself, right? To not feel what he'd done. And the first time he allowed it to come back was when he was testifying at this commission, at this Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And so they bring all these people, these horrible, horrible people, but they don't try to say, hey, you're a horrible person. They say, hey, we're just trying to understand what happened. Can you explain, what you were told, how you were trained, all that good stuff. And so these people say these amazing things. I highly recommend that you look into it. And I think there's probably a book that someone's written, probably more than one book, but it's a real exploration of how do we take not just the traumatized, but the traumatizers and give them a chance to not compartmentalize, but unleash, let the stuff out. Because at some point, no matter what you compartmentalize, something's going to start leaking through. These compartments are not completely airtight, Donald. So when you're a person who's done things and you knew those things on some level were wrong, no matter how hard you compartmentalize, those things start to color the other parts of your world. It's just a leak through somewhere. And maybe it comes out because you drink a little bit more than you used to, or maybe it comes out, that you're a little harder on your kids, or maybe it comes out somewhere, right? It comes out somewhere. It can't be, even the strongest compartments, there's some way to seep through them. We've let the poison of race, and class is built somewhat into that, because so many of the negative statistics around Black people are also statistics about money, right? The children who are doing the worst in so many areas are also going to make the least amount of money, right? So they're scoring lower on these tests, they're going to make less money, right? And so their children will be poor, and their children will be poor, and their children after them will be poor, which is why I work in an educational program that works with underserved adults so that they can break that cycle so that their children will not be underserved adults in the future. So I help them if they want to, become an HVAC tech or a truck driver or have their own daycare center, or they want to be a radiological technician, or they want to be a doctor. I'm not here to tell someone what they can't be, right? Lots of them want to be nurses. There's this complete misunderstanding that poor people are lazy. Being poor is a lot of work. Like when you see what poor people have to do just to maintain their level of poverty, you start to realize what a pain in the butt it is to be poor. No one would consciously choose to be a poor person in America. People who think that people choose this are insane and have clearly never been poor. Because it sucks. It really sucks to be poor in America. And I work with people who are going through that process and trying to get out of it. And what you have to realize is, you talked about you don't have to build something. This is where I disagree with you. If someone's never had someone in their circle, in their family, who succeeded at anything, right? At anything, it's difficult to tell that person, go be successful, right? I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm saying the odds are very much against it. Do people manage it? Sure, it happens every day. But you're asking that person to be an exception. I'm saying, instead of asking someone, this kid who's in Queensbridge Project, or this kid who's in the Rob Taylor homes, or this kid who's in, Liberty City, to say, hey, I know everything around you is terrible, but go succeed. I'm saying build a structure, Donald. Structures can be really helpful. That's why we build homes, right? As opposed to just having, throwing a blanket over ourselves in the night. We build homes. Structures help us. Structures are helpful. They help nurture us. That's why we build structures. So I believe we should build some structures. If we build structures by which people who have been unconnected to work get connected to working people, so they can see, what does the person do? I've had to teach grown adult men how to tie a tie, Donald, because no one around them ever went to something where they needed to wear a tie. So I've given some suits to young men who didn't have suits to wear to job interviews or to wear even the prom, some of the younger ones, right? Unless you connect these people who've been unconnected to success on even the lowest of levels to people that, I mean, I'm not a billionaire, I'm not a millionaire, I'm barely a thousandaire, but I'm in a better situation than the students with whom I work. And so I try to give them understanding, not just of, hey, let's fill out this paper, let's fill out that paper, let's sign you up for this program. That's not going to do it. They have to also see someone who's willing to deal with them and talk to them and guide them and answer questions for them and not talk down to them while they're doing it. You can do this. Some of them have never heard that ever in their life, have never heard someone say, you're good enough and you can do it. Some people have never in their entire lives heard that. And you don't know the power, or you know, because you probably have people that did that for you. But someone who's never had that, they don't know the power, right? Someone saying you're good enough and you can do it, and you say it to them the next day. You say it to them on Tuesday. You don't just say it once, and you say it to them on Wednesday, you say it to them on Friday. Hey, how'd that job interview go? I didn't get it. You're going to get the next one, right? You have to build structures. And part of building structures is building things inside of people, not just outside of people, Donald. If you don't build structures inside of people and outside of people, we'll never get out of this thing that we're talking about. So yes, racism is a big part of it. Income inequality is a part of it. Our broken educational system is part of it. You know, there's a bunch of things that go into it. None of these problems are insoluble, but you have to decide you want to solve them. This belief that somehow it's all going to get better by itself, I think the last 300 years have proven that that's not the case, right? It's not going to just get better by itself. Has it gotten better? Sure. Is it going to complete the process of getting better without somebody doing something more? Frankly, I don't believe that. Unless you want to wait another, who knows, however many hundreds of years. So I'm of the belief that we can speed up the process if we, to go back to my cancer analogy, hey, why don't we try some more aggressive clinical trials, right? We tried the gradual, let's see if it goes away by itself approach, and the cancer shrunk a little bit, but we still got a fair amount of cancer, as we just saw on the White House lawn and all these other places. These people are not the problem, but they sure as hell are a symptom of the problem, Donald. Those people we watched, they're a symptom of the problem that we just talked about. These people who feel somehow that if somebody gets something, it's taking something from them, right? They've been sold that bill of goods, but it's not true. A rising tide lifts all the boats, but they are somehow thinking that if this person succeeds, if this person gets this, if this person gets a college education, if this person gets that, that's taking something from me. No, right? If there's more successful people, it raises our tax base, right? And we can do more things as a nation. So the fact is that if we get serious, and I mean really serious, about one, really educating people, right? Not just making sure they can pass this particular test we give in 3rd grade, and this one we give in 8th grade, this one we give in 12th grade, right? Hey, you passed the test. Here's a piece of paper. You don't really know how to do anything helpful or useful. Maybe you'll learn something if you go to college. Maybe not. We no longer have real standards built into education, hard standards, difficult standards. Making it easier to graduate is not a solution to our broken educational system. It is not. We need to make it harder, but also make it so that the people who are in this harder, more challenging system, because the kids in Finland aren't slowing down for us to keep up. The kids in Japan aren't slowing down for us to keep up. Do you know that Costa Rica kicked our behinds in math and science education the last time they did the international survey of this? Costa Rica, Donald, right? The vacation paradise of Costa Rica beat us.
Yeah.
We
My
got
son's being educated in Southeast Asia right now. So,
but we can do this. I mean, as the old saying is, you can put a man on the moon, and we did that, right? If you can put a man on the moon, you can have a competitive, world-class educational system. I mean, we do have one. Let me rephrase that, because I've seen New Trier High School, and people say, "Oh, is that a private school?" They think that because they look at it. It has an Olympic class swimming pool. It has a computer lab that is better than the ones that were in my colleges. They have the best of the best of the best. And it's not a private school, but it's a public school in a very rich school district. So we do have in some places in America, an incredible and world-class school system. But since it's based on property tax formulas, people who don't pay property tax because they don't own property get crappy schools. Now, there's something wrong with that, but nobody wants to fix it. So that could easily be fixed. We could easily fix it. We could have a national education fund, right? That everyone pays into because we believe in children getting an education. It would be separate from our income tax. In fact, we would drop the income tax. Let's bring, not all the way, but we'd drop it significantly and say, we're going to ask you, whether it might, hey, you're a gun guy. How about if $2 of the purchase of your license or your firearm or your whatever, or your, the next, every 100, every 100 rounds, whatever, boom, goes through our education super fund. Hey, you like soft drinks, whatever the heck it is you like, right? We'll just do the classic value-added tax on these various items. And that money goes into our education super fund. The education super fund isn't just handed out willy-nilly, though. You got to earn it, right? You have to it's competitive. And it's through an RFP process. Now, does that mean that those that lose, hey, you kids are screwed? No. But it means that we use those winners as pilot programs to build programs that go into all of them, right? It doesn't make sense to just have great education some places and other education 2 miles away suck, which is what we actually have right now in America, where we have, I can name Chicago. People talk about Chicago. Chicago has some great schools. Man, we have some world-class schools in Chicago. Not all of them, not most of them, but some of them are world-class. We have kids who go and win robotics competitions and all this other stuff, and are in national debate competitions and international debate competitions and winning and all this other stuff. But we're not taking all the things we learned from our successful schools.
Time out for a second.
Sure.
They're finally certifying.
Oh, well, there we go. Well, that's exciting.
They're certifying his win now.
Well, good. And I hope you're right. I hope this gets the healing beginning. I hope it takes some of the wind out of these whole wild conspiracy wacko stuff that's going on out there. Once again, something about the failure of our school system. I think a lot of people don't even understand exactly how our electoral system works, is what I'm also learned during, I kind of knew it already, but it reminded me of how little people really understand about how our election system works.
Right.
When I see people say, oh, they dumped a pile of ballots, if you knew how elections work, you'd know that it's not that easy to commit massive election fraud. I wish, just like with jury duty, we made people, if you get your driver's license or whatever it is, they put you in a pool to be selected to be an election judge or to work a polling place. Because if most Americans had had this experience, they would know better. They would know this stuff that's being sold to them. It's bull. It's impossible to do these things that people are saying. If you saw how secure and how many seals and all these things that have to happen in an election place where you were receiving votes, whether it be the tabulation of the electronic votes, whether it be the paper ballots, whatever system you have, if someone actually knew and actually understood how many steps and how many different countermeasures are put in place, I think they would realize when people are trying to tell them, oh, they just dumped a pile of ballots, or they lost a bunch of, no. Like, if you've ever worked a polling place, if you've ever been an election judge, you would just realize these things are impossible. These people are well-trained, they work hard, they are constantly observed by election lawyers and by, both Republican, independent, and some places just Republican and Democratic. In some areas, it's Republican, Democratic, and independent judges. But it just shocks me how little people understand about how elections actually work in America. And I wish we did a better job of teaching all Americans, how your elections actually work, because I think that would put an end to some of this stuff. But we have this approach to education that's sort of like, how little can we get away with? What's the minimal amount we can make sure that you have to know to be considered an educated person, as opposed to dipping people deeply, right? We're going to submerge you in education. And I think the real secret, I mean, money's part of it, right? I mean, making it so the money is fair, so that you can have world class. When you have a school that looks like New Trier, right, in South Central Detroit, or you have a school that looks like New Trier in, the Fifth Ward in Houston, even if just the building doesn't look like, a medium security facility, like a lot of urban schools are built to almost look like prisons, Donald. And I think the kids can't help but feel that, right? They can help but realize this place literally looks like a medium security lockdown. And, these kids at New Trier don't deal with that. Their school looks like a school. In fact, it looks like a college. It looks like a small college, what it looks like. We have the money. We're spending enough money on education that we could have this, but we're putting the money into the wrong things. We have all these layers of administration and these assistant to assistant superintendents who have $110,000 salaries. And then we hire all these consultants who used to be superintendents and used to be this and used to be that, and bring them back to ask them about, but they weren't any good at their jobs anyway. We're still bringing them back for six-figure consultant contracts for 9 months. So there's all this money that's going to the wrong places, right? So the solution is not just to have a huge super fund, but to make sure it goes to the right things. And so once again, I'm saying when you have these competitions and these requests for proposals go out and people bring you these things, you say, this is a great idea. We're going to give you X amount and 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is. We're going to fund you 100% of what you need. When that's done, you're going to go from your district where you did this to this district over there, and then to this district, and then to this district, and to this district. You're going to Johnny Appleseed this fantastic idea that we funded for you until we got it everywhere. There are people who know how to help our students succeed, but we're keeping them over here with this group of children they've helped us succeed, which is fantastic for the kids that they're with, but doesn't help everybody else. If we truly, because it's funny, we have a Department of Education, but it doesn't do really anything nationally almost. It sets a few standards, it tells people, hey, we decided to change, you have to renew your license every X number of years instead of that number of years. And there's a few other things it does, but it doesn't actually administer education on a national level. Everything's done at the local level. And I'm not saying there's something wrong with that, but you can't share resources because this is ours. We had this success. It's our success. It's mine, precious, mine. If you had true nationalization of these things, these successes would be shared everywhere. Hey, you managed to find this great program to teach science to kids that hated science before. Boom, excellent. I'm sending you now to here to teach that. Now I'm sending you here. And you're going to go to this symposium and teach these teachers how to do it. And we're going to send you all around the country for, a year and a half until you've taught these kids or these teachers or these administrators these things that you had success with. And then every couple of years, you'll go another cycle around, right? To retrain, reteach, whatever. We don't have that because we don't truly nationalize anything about education. We have a Department of Education, but it's basically a do-nothing, almost do-nothing department. And it collects money, right? The federal government, allots it money, and it distributes money. You can get money from it. Through grants and, like I said, the Pell Grant I mentioned earlier and other things like that. That money does, but they don't do anything other than sort of collect the money, hand the money out, collect the money, hand the money out. They aren't driving innovation, Donald. They're not saying, let's have this competition to see who can do the best job of teaching third graders how to understand fractions. And the winner gets this $250,000 grant, which we will then use to build a pilot program to take nationally. They could do that. There's nothing preventing them from doing that, but they're not. So our Department of Education is just kind of there to just take money, hand it out, take money, hand it out. But we could do so much more.
I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
So all these things.
That being said, I have to spend time with the family now.
Well, you know what? Spend time with your family. I need to spend time with my computer. I have some things I have to write and finish up for some of my students that I have tomorrow. So yes, work never stops. And I have some things I have to probably. I have some students who are going to school online starting tomorrow for the first time in their lives, and so I have to give them some sort of helpful tips and pointer videos to our YouTube channel. Which, hey, here's this link. Click here. It shows you how to do this, how to do that. Here's how to be a good. Here's how to ask good questions, take good notes in a Zoom environment. Because some of these students a lot of my students are older students who are going back to school for the first time in many years. And anything online is new to them. And especially, like I said, with what's going on with the pandemic, it's going to be rough on everybody, but it's especially rough on students whose access to technology is spotty and not as consistent and not as thorough. We've collected. So if you know people who have old laptops they don't want anymore, let me know, because I have a bunch of students that need laptops. But on that happy note, I will give you your life back and you back to your family. Donald, I want to let you know that I may occasionally disagree with you, but I always respect you, and I always appreciate the fact that you are willing to listen.
Always. Same to you too. One more
Thank
thing
you, sir.
before we get out of here. I want to get together with you about Deion Sanders before National Signing Day.
I've got some Deion Sanders recruitment stories, but yes, cool. I have a lot of friends who work in high school to college recruitment process, and yeah, there's some stories making their ways about Deion. Deion's a fascinating individual. He is a fascinating individual. He does things his own way.
Yes, he has. All right. Good
So,
talking with you, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Tell Vinny and the crew. I know I've been there's a lot going on in the family right now.
There's a lot going on in America. So you take care of your family, those that love you, those that you love. And like I said, it's been a pleasure. We can always disagree without being disagreeable, right?
All right, you take it easy.
You too, sir. Good night.
Good night.